Hey guys! This is part 4 of What If Naruto Was a Seal Master. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 20, Prelims Point 2, The Preliminary. Hello, Tenten, Naruto greeted as he approached her. Team training hadn't started yet, so she was just doing some target practice until Gai-sensei and Lee arrived from their daily bout of psychosis. She smiled, not having seen her mutual Fuinjutsu user in several weeks. Hi, Naruto. How are you? I am well. I came to ask a question, he informed her. Sure. I have a bone sword, do you want it? Tenten looked at Naruto, remaining silent and blinking slowly. It appeared he'd gotten more brazen in his perversions, even incorporating metaphors for dick. I know you know that's a nap, holy shit, that's a literal bone sword, her tone going from chastising to gleeful surprise. She thought all the Kagaya were dead. How did you get that? Where did you meet a Kagaya? We fought and he stabbed me with it. That put a damper on her excitement. Are you alright? Yes, I healed, and of the two of us he had the greater odds of dying from our exchange, Naruto explained. Why you killed a Kagaya? I couldn't confirm it at the time, so I do not know, but possibly. Either way, I have this sword and thought you'd put it to better use. Naruto placed the weapon in Tenten's hands. It felt light but as sturdy as any steel sword she's ever wielded. I'm going to have to do something special in exchange, she said. Before thinking what that could be, but inspiration didn't take long as she recalled his fascination with her puppy Chow. I know! Have you ever had lemon squares? Why would you square a lemon? Naruto asked in clear confusion. You wouldn't, she said between laughs. Don't worry about it, I'll drop them off later today and you can tell me about your run-in with a Kagaya. She bypassed the hand he offered her to shake and gave him a quick hug before mushing his hair. Friends don't need to shake on things, Naruto. Soon a duet of yells filled the area, which signaled the start of their team training. Naruto spoke briefly to Lee and Guy before departing. Tenten arrived on the floor first, bone sword already unsealed. She wanted no delay in her offense once the fight started. Team 9 hadn't exactly had a rough time in the forests, Niji's Byakugan easily tracking approaching threats. She was thankful, the stress of having a price on her head had taken a toll, and even now she felt on edge. She was almost thankful she didn't have to fight any of her new friends, but was wary of the Suna Kunoichi. The weapons mistress doubted Suna would send any but their very best, and the girl appeared beyond confident. The Leaf Ninja resolved to do something about it. Temari was working through on her issues, relishing the much more direct combat she was about to undertake. Since her father informed them of his harebrained scheme to invade Konoha, her life has been nothing but constant training, missions, and worrying for her brothers. She hated that Raza wanted to use Gaara as a weapon of mass destruction, and that was before the events of their travel to and time within the foreign village. And if that hadn't been enough, Baki's near mental breakdown after he'd spoken with the Hokage was still fresh in the young Kunoichi's mind. They know, Baki said and then repeated. His body was shaking the way it would when gripped by a fear the mind can't process, that visceral fear ninja trained to overcome. That her sensei was experiencing that now threatened to send her into a similar state. While Kankuro was trying to get the full story from Baki, Temari could guess who they were and what they knew. The invasion was blown, Konoha was onto them. She, momentarily, wondered why they weren't dead yet. Her father wouldn't have wasted a second to kill Konoha ninja if the situations were reversed. Temari, how close are you to the Namake's boy? Baki asked. We hung out once, she answered. Why would he be asking that now? Did Baki think attempting to kill Naruto would benefit them? If so, he'd really gone around the bend. The Hokage, he's close to the boy. I don't think he meant to reveal as much, but he did. Our survival might depend on you getting close to him. But it's not without risks. Temari didn't bother to point out she's neither a whore nor a concubine and seduction missions were beneath her. Baki knew it but had taken leave of his senses. Yes, I'm sure the Hokage wouldn't appreciate us trying to manipulate someone he cares about, she reasoned but frowned when Baki shook his head. Her conclusion felt logical. What had she missed? The person responsible for that scroll and the fake bounties was Orochimaru, Baki said, all attempts to self-soothe having failed, and his voice cracked. He brought 9 other ninja with him and baited the Namake's boy. Baki took a breath, all 3 of his students now interested in his tale. According to the Sandaime, Naruto killed 8 of the 9 and captured Orochimaru by himself. Given everything else that boy has shown, he's clearly ruthless. Probably trained in secret since he could stand upright. If he believes you're playing him, you may not live to suffer the Sandaime's wrath. It was unbefitting of her, disrespectful to her superior and an insult to her training, but Temari couldn't help it. She laughed. Deep belly laughs filled their temporary room, the sound pinging off the stone walls. What was she supposed to do? The boy that she shared lemon squares with and watched a Princess Gale movie as they chatted was some remorseless killer? It just didn't track. When she calmed herself, her more analytical processes took over. She liked him, that was true. He was cute and clearly had a way with the ladies if that Haku girl, who was only somewhat pretty, would give him some play. He was also the only boy around her age that showed any interest in getting to know her for her and not her connections to Raza and Gaara. Temari looked back at the scroll. The most damning information was about Naruto, and if it were just an attempt to bait him, it stood to reason that all those other names had some connection to him. 3 girls, 2 heiresses. She recalled their first conversation. Even if the ninja were stronger than she initially thought, the girls were too weak-willed to rein him in or curb his nascent playboy tendencies. It was clear what was going to happen. Once she showed him what a real kunoichi looked like, he'd forget those other girls. And maybe she'd escape with more than just her life. As Temari arrived across from Tenten, she stared at her first obstacle. She recognized the name, the person credited with the lemon squares she enjoyed as a movie snack. She tried not to hurt her too bad. A quality baker was a precious commodity. Fight! Hade commanded, and Tenten went on the offensive with a flowing series of thrusts, the speed taking Temari by surprise. The Team 9 kunoichi was relentless and resolved to leave her Suna counterpart no time to use her fan. While fast and practiced, the attacks were not enough to overwhelm Temari but left her no space to open her fan, forcing her to use it as a club instead. The exchanges became a battle of speed versus power as Tenten's nimble sword attack went against the heavy swings of Temari's war fan, either side gaining an advantage. A loud clang was heard as both weapons clashed, the force knocking them out of each kunoichi's respective hands. The weapons flew to either side of the arena, leaving the 2 young women unarmed. Tenten, as befitting the student of Mado Gai, flowed into a sidekick that landed squarely on Temari's stomach. The impact sent her back, creating enough space to perform a jutsu. The hand signs were so fast and practiced, Tenten was too slow to react as the powerful blast of wind chakra lifted her off her feet and tossed her back like a rag doll. She hit the floor with a thud and rolled, attempting to disperse some of the force of the impact. She wasn't familiar with the jutsu, but she knew it hurt like one of Gai-sensei's youthful punches. But pain was to be endured and put to the side. The more pressing matter was her opponent running to her war fan, and Tenten could not allow that to happen. Her draw was smooth, her throw fast, and the result immediate. Ah! Temari yelled as she fell to the ground, a small throwing knife now embedded in her thigh, a small stream of blood running down her leg. Her mobility was hampered and she was still too far away from her primary weapon. She was starting to get concerned. That concern morphed into worry as she watched the bun-haired girl pull out 2 sealing scrolls and change some hand signs. Then the girl was in the air, raining down numerous weapons upon Temari. With her fan, swatting away the weapons would be no problem, but she had to settle for twin golem palms. The jutsu did as she desired, blasting the weapons away. She felt the hairs rise on her neck when she saw the other girl smirk. Kankuro's shout of warning wasn't needed, and would have come too late had Temari performed her substitution even a half a second slower, as some of the weapons had circled around and attempted to blindside her. Instead, they sank into her fan as she used the wall to steady herself. Her leg could barely support her weight, but she hoped, the great breakthrough had done more damage to Tenten, and observing the kunoichi, Temari was confident she was right. It didn't surprise her when the girl retrieved yet another weapon and charged her. Temari removed the knife from her leg and tossed, breaking Tenten's stride for just a moment. She continued on to her target, taking a swing of her jin. Temari timed it well enough to sway inside Tenten's guard and punch her in the ribs. What were once merely fractured were not broken, and the shock from the blow left Tenten open and disarmed. Temari snaked an arm under Tenten's and secured the weapon's mistress's arm and head to her chest. She used her other arm to secure the lock and used her superior height to add pressure. Tenten tried to fight, but with her circulation cut off she was rendered unconscious in a matter of moments, Hate promptly calling an end to the fight. Temari was announced the winner and both girls were escorted to receive medical aid. She hadn't known what she was expecting, something more makeshift, but the treatment center in the tower was anything but. The medics placed her and Tenten in the same room. 2 medics saw to Tenten's injuries, 1 to her wound. The 3 chatted, mentioning something about it being a shame that their cutie wouldn't make it to the finals. When one blamed a snake bastard, Temari put it together but was confused all the same. Did these 3 know Naruto, and if so, how? Could he be a combat medic? She wanted to dismiss it outright, as except for one notable exception, medics were unimpressive when it came to combat. It was just one more mystery about her friend. She didn't know but resolved to learn more about her future conquest. Temari was thankful when she was given something to read, the medics keeping all participants there unless they are called again, or until the end of the preliminary round. She paid little attention to the last Kusagenin that was brought in with a slash across his chest, nor the slacker with pineapple hair. She did get concerned when Kankuro was brought in but was refused access while the medics worked, one eventually informing her he was nearing chakra exhaustion. She had to bite her tongue when the severe-looking Hyuga was willed in while holding his privates. She must have clearly missed something good. Back at the arena, Hinata watched what could be her future opponents. She understood Choji forfeiting against Gaara after his display, but she'd have liked some more information about him. The Kumo Genin, Omoi, was a Kenjutsu and right-hand user. Lee was a taijutsu specialist by necessity, and a powerful one at that. She had no information on Sasuke as Ino chose not to return to face him. She was relieved she'd have neutered the Uchiha if he harmed her Ino-chan. She felt bad for Shinokuin. It had been a good fight, but he'd succumbed to the poisons before he could finish the puppeteer, the 2 koing each other. Finally, her name was called and it was against her cousin. He was already angry at her while she had no problem ignoring his diatribe. She used to think she understood why Niji hated her. It wasn't just that she was of the main branch, it was that despite her desire to remove the curse seal she was weak and ineffectual and held a higher status that her talents didn't merit. She accepted that, and would never judge Niji for it. However, the better she got the more he resented her. No overture to become allies was met with anything but hostility. And according to Tenten, he'd bad-mouthed Naruto-kun. He must not have gotten the memo that no one did that. So, while she loved her cousin and sympathized to the best of her ability his resentments, she was going to have to hurt him a little. And the near-mute support system isn't here to prop you up. Niji bit out, words she did pay attention to and caused her eyes to narrow. Okay, I'm going to hurt him a little more than a little, she thought. But new physical pain would be nothing, it was his arrogance that needed a hit. He finally shut up and the proctor finally called a start to the match. Niji's attack was fast, relentless, and textbook perfect. She'd have to devote herself for days on end to match the grace and form he achieved almost naturally. He was talented and diligently worked to further that talent, but talent could have a weakness. As much as Niji practiced, as great as he could be, no one was as obsessed with the gentle fist as the proud failure of an heiress. Her forms were never as crisp, didn't flow with power and purpose. Because she knew she was doing it wrong, she obsessed over the manuals, over the kata, just hoping to get it right. She never did, not to anyone's satisfaction. It made her hate herself, made her curse her very being. But her best friend gave her permission to be more than the Hyuga heiress, to do more than chase her father and her cousin. She was strong like Hinata, and so while Niji could perform the striking progressions perfectly, she could guard them with just as much ease. She could see the signs of frustration that took hold when he couldn't simply beat her down. The rigidity of his form, the frown and tension around his eyes. That his response was to simply try harder was predictable and disappointing. If Niji's offense was a volley of arrows hurtling toward their target, Hinata's defense was the rounded shield that could make any direct assault a glancing blow. When his frustration reached its apex, Hinata changed her guard, her feet now closer together, and her hands palms out and chest level. She could almost read his thoughts, that she'd committed a blunder as her stance would slow down and weaken her defense. That her improvements were overstated and overrated, that he'd prove he was right all along. Confidence had returned, and it had nothing to do with anything he'd done. He'd given her control of his emotions and he hadn't realized. Niji closed in and Hinata remained patient, waiting for the perfect time to strike. Now, she shouted mentally and attacked. There was a collective grunt of empathy from every male in the arena. Niji had expected something, but not to be kicked squarely in the nuts. Hinata continued her assault as she grabbed one of his arms and pulled him close. Her second strike looked like a chop to some but was really the thumb of her knuckle hitting a pressure point in Niji's throat, stunning him once more. A single arm takedown later, and Niji was face down with his arms straightened above him and Hinata's shin on his neck as she executed an armbar. "Submit or I'll break your arm," she demanded as she put pressure on the shoulder and elbow joints. His pride told him to let her break it, that she'd either be too cowardly to follow through or he'd beat her with one good arm. He grimaced at the pain, his arm reaching its literal breaking point. Niji was saved by his sensei, Guy calling a stop to the fight and Hate taking heed. He wanted to yell at his sensei, wanted to blindly attack his cousin, but a small trickle of something down his spine told him to behave. He turned to see the Hokage, his face severe and removed from the kindly grandfather he normally portrayed himself as. Niji said nothing and allowed the medics to escort him away. Hiruzen congratulated all who moved on to the next round and had them draw for their next match. Hinata drew Lee, Oma would fight Temari and Sasuke would face Gaara. She felt good, having beat her cousin and potentially earning a promotion in a month, but she wished she could share it with her best friend. His sensei had refused to allow her entrance into his hospital room. They had a lot to talk about. 2 days after he was brought to the tower, Naruto found himself in a poorly lit dungeon. The large doors with a paper seal upon them alerted him that he has finally entered the representation of his seal. He's in his shared mindscape with the Bijou. Naruto had thought about what he would say to the Bijou should they ever meet. Despite what the fox was said to have done, Naruto didn't really hate nor fear the beast, and neither would really benefit him as he was at least free. One large red eye peered at Naruto, and anyone else would describe it as if something was staring into their very soul. Naruto just thought it was a really big eye, even compared to the toads. He walked up to the gate. As he got closer, more of the fox was revealed and left Naruto with one thought. "I like your ears, can I pet them?" he asked, and the giant fox made a sound that was a mix of a cough and a laugh. "Maybe when we get to know each other a little better," he said, and Naruto nodded as it was more than fair. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto, what's your name?" "Well met, Naruto. You can call me Kyubi." "Is that your name?" "No, but my name is the only thing of value I still possess, and will not give it out freely. Maybe one day, maybe." "So, Warden, why have you stopped by for a visit today?" Naruto didn't really understand it, but it wasn't a requirement that he did. If Kyubi-san wanted to be called that, it was his prerogative. "I didn't mean to. I was injured and rendered near unconscious. I may also be sedated given my injuries." Naruto squinted and thought about how he'd treat himself, ignoring that initially he was doing just that via his clone. Moving on from that, he decided. "Do you have some preferences for how you'd like the seal changed?" "I have plans, but wanted to get your input before I finalize them." "Short of you letting me go?" "Yes, Kyubi-san, short of my letting you go. Not a dungeon, maybe some more natural surroundings like a forest or anything but this. And some reading materials, can you do that?" "I could link you to my mind palace. It has every book I've read since I was 9 years old." "A forest is possible. I'll get to work on it when I can." "Anything else?" "Why did you ask?" It seemed only fair. Naruto answered, and he heard Kyubi-san hum. Naruto walked closer to the cage and held his hand out, the Kyubi looking at him in mild confusion. "You shake on a deal, and I believe we have reached an accord, Kyubi-san. I think my hands might be a tad too large to shake yours. Make a fist instead." Kyubi-san instructed, and Naruto did, with Kyubi-san doing the same and tapping Naruto's. That's how Bijou cement agreements. Don't make me regret this, Naruto. Even minor trusts can be broken, and some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. Naruto nodded and then plopped down. He hadn't come here intentionally, so didn't really know how to leave. "Can you tell me about yourself, Kyubi-san? Why don't you start?" "Okay," Naruto said, and for a time the pair shared stories about likes, dislikes, and past adventures. When Naruto was being pulled away, a sign he was being awoken, he stated he'd come back, and Kyubi-san huffed as if he didn't care. Once his jailer had left, Kurama looked down as a much smaller blonde, with whisker marks and red eyes peeked from his paws. "I thought you were going to introduce yourself, little one," Kurama said tenderly to the small Naruto replicant. I got nervous, Databeo. Maybe next time?" Kurama offered, and Yami nodded. He seemed nice to Bayo. "You think he'll accept me?" "I don't know, little one, I don't know." Slowly stirring, the bright lights of the room proved discomforting, hurting his eyes slightly. Naruto ignored the sensation as he blurrily looked for a pitcher and cup. A silhouette aided him by filling the cup and putting it in his hand. Welcome back, Naruto-kun. You've had Tsunade-sama quite worried, the voice said. Shut up, Shizen. Tsunade barked, but there was no real heat to her words. If some little brat wants to get himself blown up fighting people he shouldn't, that's his business. No sweat off my brow. You still can't be honest with your emotions, Tsunade-chan? Hiruzen asked, ribbing his student. She was indeed very worried about you, Naruto-kun, insisting she treat you herself. Stop picking on me, sensei. She whined, not enjoying this at all. Naruto's vision finally clears and the water has alleviated his dry throat. He could see he was in the room with not only the three that had spoken but Hataki-sensei as well, who waved at his student. Feeling the need to address his other sensei, Naruto informs her. I didn't want to blow myself up. It was the most effective tactic at the time. Tsunade resisted the urge of slapping everyone with a smug look on their face, briefly forgetting who she'd been talking to. I know you didn't want that, Naruto, but you are nowhere near Orochimaru's level, so going to face him alone meant you'd have to put yourself at risk to even survive the encounter. Naruto agreed. He'd gone after Anko fully prepared to die. Grievous bodily injury was expected, but some part of him felt he should keep that to himself for now. Tsunade-sensei was one of the more difficult people for him to understand. Naruto-kun, I know this may be a bit much, but are you up for a debrief? I waited to get the details from you so your clone could focus. The Sandaime explained. Can I just show you? Naruto asked, and the Sandaime granted permission for all in the room to be informed as well. Naruto hastily linked all of their projection seals together, and then replayed his time in the Forest of Death, the activities of the clones being held separately. As they watched the events, 3A and B were having a private meeting about the Uzumaki. Yugao Tenzo, the commander started, the two agents knowing he was serious as he called them by their actual names. They were in a secured room within the exam tower, supposedly to get final orders before Naruto's month-long protection detail started, but Dragon had other plans. Uzumaki Naruto must be an ANBU operative, he stated. Commander Yugao started but was silenced by the raised hand of her superior officer. I know. Sandaime-sama doesn't think he'd flourish with us. I disagree. And not only would he benefit, but we would as well. Think of a Fuinjutsu master who could design equipment for us because he had first-hand knowledge of our needs as they would be his own. A high-class medic who could offer preventive measures or any number of things because he knows how taxing our missions are. Uzumaki Naruto could breathe new life into ANBU, and we need some innovation so things don't become stagnant. In exchange, he'd get some of the best physical and tactical training in the whole of the shinobi system. He'd also be under the radar for a while so the heat of taking down Orochimaru can die down. And we'd finally have a Hokage pass through our ranks. All that sounds good, and I've made similar arguments to Sandaime-sama, but he is near violently opposed to Naruto-kun becoming one of us, and I don't know how you expect to get around that. Yugao explained. Simple, I want you two and your squads to sell him on becoming one of us. I want this next month to be so enthralling he'll want to do nothing but to be in ANBU. If the request comes from him, Sandaime-sama may become more open to it. Commander, how are we to sell him without seeming obvious? Tenzo asked. He rather liked Naruto and wouldn't mind him joining their ranks, but he didn't want to be turned to ash trying to make it happen. I've made arrangements for him to stay in ANBU HQ for the month, and Tsunade will start his surgical rotation in our own medical facilities. Training him a little and showing him around won't be too harmful. He won't see anything a new recruit couldn't get access to. I also have it on good authority that he isn't very close to his teammates, so we can show him how tight ANBU squads are and how much fun we can be. I disagree with nothing you've said, Commander, but Sandaime-sama won't be so easily swayed, not even by Naruto-kun. Maybe we just have to consider him outside of our grasp. Seeing one of his top agents faltering, Dragon knew he'd have to go to his secret weapon. Retrieving a sealing scroll, Dragon unsealed the contents and held them up for Yugao to see. It was a small ANB uniform, roughly Naruto's size with a lynx mask. Just think of sunshine blonde hair sticking out of this mask, training with Nico-senpai. Dragon teased. Yugao, despite herself, couldn't get the image out of her head, and it was downright adorable. He'd be a little ANBU assassin. I am going to report in, Commander, Yugao said, not trusting herself to say anything more. He dismissed her, confident his ploy had worked. Looking to his other agent, Dragon had one last card to play. Tenzo, if you can somehow let it slip that our showers are co-ed, that'd be great. The Mokuton user just sighed and left, as there was no arguing with Dragon when he got an idea cemented in his head. Naruto had just finished his debrief when Yugao arrived outside the room. There were several voices congratulating him on his actions, but all fell quiet when the Sandaime began to speak. Naruto-kun, I am sorry you will not get to compete in the finals. I had been looking forward to it, but the rules simply wouldn't allow it. I understand. Naruto started but was interrupted. Yes, we simply cannot allow Chunins to participate in the Chunin exams. It wouldn't be fair, he said with a smile as Kakashi presented Naruto his new vest. I am very proud of you, Naruto-kun, but things will only get more difficult, I'm afraid, so you must continue to push all areas of your training. Orochimaru held back. You can no longer count on anyone else underestimating you. Hi, Naruto replied. Good. Now, Chunin Uzumaki, are you ready for your first mission? It is A rank and will require your Fuinjutsu expertise. I'm ready, but can I forego payment for trade? Naruto asked. What would you like to trade? There's an Uzumaki in the exams from Kusa. Pretty red hair and eyes to match with glasses. Her team mistreats her. One held a kunai to her throat to get me to leave. You want her to relocate here? Hiruzen asked. I'd like her to have the option. Naruto answered. I'm sure we can figure something out. Hiruzen said, but internally thought if need be the Kusa team could have a collective accident. Who was to say how out of hand Orochimaru got before he was captured? With the price settled, Hiruzen began informing Naruto about his latest mission. Soon, Hiruzen departed with Tsunade and Shizen following suit. Only Kakashi remained behind and favored his favorite student with an eye smile. Getting promoted mid-exams is something not even your father accomplished. Quite impressive, Naruto-kun. And even with all that was going on to find an Uzumaki damsel in distress. You really are a sly little devil. Minato-sensei would be proud. Kakashi practically beamed and Naruto smiled back, slightly. Now that you're a Chunin, our real training can begin, Kakashi said as he tossed something toward Naruto. Familiarize yourself with that. Soon I'm going to teach you all the ways to remove one with and without using your hands. Kakashi ignored the blast of killing intent coming from outside the room. He knew teaching the chosen one would be perilous. He'd long accepted it. Besides, danger made cool things cooler. Chapter 21. The first thing he noticed was his chakra flow. Sluggish was the initial sensation. Utterly beyond his control was the second. He could still feel it but could not exert influence over it, molded as he'd done countless times before. The next was his former team as he sat up in the brightly lit cell. Every wall stone except the one in front of him. Transparent but not glass, nothing obscured the three severe faces watching him in judgment. Kukuku, the reunion I've always hoped for. Wishes do come true. This cell has a series of Fuinjutsu-enabled security measures, Hiruzen said, ignoring his traitorous student. If needed, I can cut your oxygen supply. Heat the room hot enough to incinerate you. Or turn you into a fine mist. Naruto-kun's been busy, Orochimaru said, recalling how one of his subordinates had experienced such a change in matter. If by some miracle you could escape this cell, there are seals placed on you all designed to deliver instant death. If you stall in giving us information, you die. If you try to escape, you die. If you displease me in any way, I die? Orochimaru said mockingly. I'll open your cell and show you why I'm the professor and you're the student, Hiruzen answered. It'd almost be worth it, sensei. Just to see you do it. Could you really beat me to death? If Danzo had not been present when I found you, you'd already have an answer to that question. Well, you've certainly laid out the stick, but where's the carrot? You must have lost your mind. Sensei isn't going to give you anything, Jiraiya stated. He frowned when Orochimaru rolled his eyes, knowing what was coming next. Stupid Jiraiya, always a little slow on the uptake. Sensei may want me dead, but he needs me alive. Especially if you want the information I have about the Akatsuki. And sure, he could have me tortured, but he has to know I can survive anything he do to me, or in the case of Anko-chan, piss her off so much she goes too far. I'll die just to spite you and then you'll get nothing. You have a little leeway, but don't push it. My list is short, and shouldn't be a problem. 1. A library. If I'm going to be stuck in this cage, then I need something to occupy my mind lest I go insane. Done. What else? Oh, just access to Naruto-kun, Orochimaru said and swiftly felt the burn in his lungs associated with suffocating. He didn't falter though, he refused. Instead, he stared at his sensei, daring the man to go to the edge. Time marched on. He felt his vision narrowing, but he still smiled. Soon, the game of chicken was over and he could breathe again. What do you possibly hope to gain from speaking to him? He isn't like you, isn't twisted nor malicious, said Jiraiya. Isn't like me? He's more like me than any of you could ever hope to understand. And whatever you think of me, at least I'd have protected him from what Sensei is doing to him, what he did to me. What did I ever do to you other than support you? Support? Even now you don't get it. It wasn't enough you had someone that could kill the wolves. You needed me to see myself as a protector of sheep, one of you. Before your ideology wormed its way into my head, corrupting me, I was pure. I sought not to be anything other than what I was. You made me believe I was something else. And because I lied to myself, I got to watch my students blow up in an IWA ambush. The sole family of my friend died in front of me. If I had remained pure, then not only would Nawaki's death have not been my fault, I wouldn't have cared. You tainted me, and when the inevitable happened and I, from your perspective, turned into a monster, you laid it squarely at my feet. And you're doing the same to Naruto-kun. A gift maybe even purer than my own, greater than his father's, and you'll corrupt him too. Because it isn't enough for you that we be effective or powerful. It doesn't count unless we have the will of fire in our hearts. But he'll lose someone he can't afford to, and it'll break him. That void will be filled with a wrath you can't imagine. And it'll be your fault, Sensei. Hiruzen simply looked at his fallen student, his emotions unreadable. He didn't know if this was Orochimaru trying to manipulate him, an ad hoc justification, or if he truly believed he'd been corrupted by a belief meant to give aid, comfort, and purpose. Hiruzen resigned himself with never knowing, and that triggered a pang of guilt. On some level, he never truly understood his student, and while that was no excuse, it was another failure. But he never let those words make him think differently about Naruto-kun. He knew his grandson and had no doubts about that. You're mad, Jiraiya said as Tsunade no longer looked angry but remorseful. She ranted and raved when Nawaki died, blaming Orochimaru for not being there. She apologized, but the damage had, clearly, been done, and she vacated the village soon after, so could do nothing else. Am I? Tell me, Jiraiya, why isn't Minato alive? The Kyuubi killed him. Oh, I thought the Reaper Death Seal did that. Though, it isn't the only way to seal a bijou, not even the strongest. Theoretically, he could have chosen another sealing method and lived. He chose to die. Why do you think that is? Shut up. I don't care what value you have. If you badmouth Minato, I'll kill you. I'm not insulting Minato, the exact opposite really. He was gifted with a greater degree of self-awareness than I was at his age. He saw his wife about to die and knew he didn't just have to protect the village from the Kyuubi but from himself. He really thought it was safer to leave his only son an orphan, knowing there was someone after the Kyuubi he just sealed inside of Naruto-kun, than a world where he existed but Kushina did not. You're wrong. Whatever Minato did, he thought it was for the best. He wouldn't have left Naruto alone if there had been another way. Jiraiya said in a raised voice, fist clenched and knuckles white. Sure. Are we done now? Come on, Jiraiya. This is what he wants, don't engage. Tsunade said, patting him on the shoulder. He nodded and relaxed. No, you will not have access to Naruto-kun. That's a shame, as I'll only give my intel to him. How far do you think you can push me? Hiruzen asked. Your mistake is thinking that's the goal. Just because this upsets you doesn't mean I'm trying to be upsetting. I simply wish to converse with the young man that handily defeated me. I am the leader of a hidden village, which makes this quite the feat. If he doesn't have a million Rio bingo book entry by month's end, I'd be disappointed. Kukuku. No, you will not be speaking with Naruto-kun, Hiruzen said. If his student was confident in his resistance to torture, then he would demonstrate it for as long as necessary. Any affection the aged Hokage held for his student died in the forest of death. The trio departed without another word to Orochimaru, the heavy metal door slamming behind them as they entered the hallway. Where is the Gaki? I need to talk to him about challenging S-rank ninja. Jiraiya was not pleased when informed of Naruto's exploits, not at all. I'll direct you to him, but do keep in mind he was protecting a comrade. Hiruzen cautioned his student. Kakashi walked through the village, head buried in Jiraiya's latest manuscript. The copy ninja felt good. It had been so long he'd almost forgotten how it felt to be anything but hollow. It was a welcome change, and he managed to feel only slightly guilty he hadn't sought treatment sooner. As he giggled at the hijinks of Akio, his mind also turned to his students. All three had impressed him during the first and second part of the exams, and while he'd have been delighted for all three to make it to the finals, ultimately Kakashi couldn't complain. Sakura may have drawn with Kurenai's student, but Kakashi could tell she'd also learned a lot about herself up to that point. She fought really well against an opponent that should have overpowered her, and Kakashi was glad she was learning how to apply her intelligence in combat. In truth, Sakura was always the most challenging of his students. She wasn't going to be a natural in ninjutsu nor tracking, his specialties, due to her small reserves. Where she may have talent, due to her chakra control, would be the medical and illusionary arts, but one teammate was being trained by Tsunade and the other had the Sharingan. She deserved to shine outside of her teammates, but the Hatake wasn't sure how he'd manage it. Next was Sasuke. Kakashi had been most impressed with the boy's emotional growth, his sessions seeming to pay dividends as well. Kakashi could see a reality where Sasuke would have gone with Naruto to face Orochimaru out of a confusing mixture of rivalry, jealousy, and loyalty. Instead, he heeded the advice of his teammate and got Sakura and himself to the tower. It was the kind of decision a Chunin would be expected to make, and Kakashi knew that choice would benefit the Uchiha during final assessment. Now, he just had to figure out how to keep his student alive against the nihilistic Jinchuuriki. A part of Kakashi wanted to pull Sasuke from the fight. It wasn't mandatory, it wasn't a mission, and Kakashi had little information on Gaara's abilities outside of sand manipulation. That suggested he had some version of the magnet release, and if he were in any way proficient with it, Sasuke would be in for a tough fight. Then add on what effects the bijou could have on Gaara, and he may be walking his student into a death trap. But he knows Sasuke wouldn't back down, not before even trying. And if he'd known Naruto didn't just survive against Orochimaru, progress or no, Sasuke would refuse to yield to anyone, and showed that he wasn't that far behind his teammate. "Hey, Kakashi!" Asuma called out, interrupting the copy ninja's thoughts. He was with his team, the lone kunoichi still sporting bandages on her shoulder, all standing outside a food stand. "Team 10, good morning," he greeted. "You seem to be faring well, Ino-chan. I'll have to let Naruto-kun know. You know where he is? Is he okay?" she asked, hopeful he'd have the answer. "I do. He is. In fact, he'll be on special assignment for the month, so don't be too surprised if he's not around much." "Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know. Hinata and I were worried," Ino said. Kakashi almost scoffed. Ino may have been worried, but he was certain that Byakugan-wielding Honey Badger would have killed him if she'd had the skill to do so. He remembered those dead, lavender eyes when he refused her access to Naruto. He knew when someone was sizing him up, and she had. "Of course," Kakashi replied and favored her with his eye smile. "Well, I must be off. I wouldn't want to keep Sasuke waiting too long," he said as he walked away. And while he would eventually get to Sasuke, he had one stop to make before he could begin training the Uchiha. He faintly heard Ino mention she had to hurry as well. It was a short trip to the aviary, and as he predicted, two of the visiting Jounin sensei were sending messenger pigeons to their respective villages. He wasn't as confident in allowing people to spread the information about Naruto being Minato-sensei's son, but the only way to stop it would be for him to kill a lot of people. Kakashi didn't necessarily have a problem with that, but he was too smart to ignore it would be a declaration of war on Konoha's part. War equals bad, so the intel would spread across the nation. "Good morning, all," he greeted, and while the blonde Kumo kunoichi simply turned to him but remained indifferent. Baki, on the other hand, tensed. Good, Kakashi thought. Oh, he knew about Baki. Minato-sensei said the man had the gall to hit on Kushina-sama right in front of him. It was only the desire to avoid an international incident that Minato-sensei didn't disappear him. The man made Kakashi's Chidori hand itchy. "Hatake-san," Baki said gruffly. "I hope you are both enjoying your stay in our lovely village," Kakashi continued. "It's cool," Samly said. She seemed to be a well-endowed lady of a few words. Kakashi could appreciate that. Twice a night, and once in the morning if she were down. "Such luxury makes a ninja soft," Baki answered, and Kakashi smiled at him. The man was confident he was safe until the end of the Chunin exams, Kakashi reasoned. "I don't know, Baki-san. Our forests are lush, yes, but you could get lost for days, if not years, in that sea of trees. And who can say what lurks there? Why, some sand rat could find himself off the beaten path and never be found again." The trio became silent, and Kakashi appreciated that Baki didn't ask if he were threatening him, as he clearly was. Unfortunately, He was here in an official capacity, so he couldn't screw with the Suna Jounin for too long. Now you two know some information that you shouldn't and are no doubt sending back to your villages. Hokage-sama has decided to allow it. But, and this is especially salient for you Samui-san, should either party ever act on said information in a deleterious manner, Hokage-sama wanted to let you know he won't be nice like he was with Kushina nor demonstrate the understanding he showed with Hinata. Kakashi didn't wait for their reactions, didn't really care. He delivered his message and departed with a shunshin. "You're late," was his greeting when he arrived at the team training grounds. He waved off Sakura's outburst. He was only a little late. "What excuse is it this time, Kakashi?" Sasuke asked. "I got distracted by 2 impossibly round cantaloupes." Ino composed herself as she walked into the training area with numerous Hyuga members gathered. Hayashi, Hinata and the rest of Team 8 were in the center of the room, and by all appearances they hadn't started yet. She slid to the side as to be out of the way but saw that Hinata knew she was there. The Yamanaka hadn't known why Hinata wanted her there, even if she could guess, but she hadn't predicted a family gathering. "Today," Hayashi spoke with authority, "we acknowledge my eldest daughter and clan heiress for making it to the final round of her first Chunin exams." There was some polite clapping, but it was short-lived. "The only way to do it truly is for me to also acknowledge I was wrong. I pushed you hard when you were younger because I believed it to be the one true way. I faltered and lost hope when you didn't respond. When you told me you wanted to be a Hyuga your way, I only thought you were simply avoiding tradition." Hayashi walked toward his daughter and put his hands on her shoulders. "I was wrong. I am glad I was wrong, but sorry I needed you to prove me so." He let go and began addressing the room once more. "Hers is but one future path for the Hyuga, the first change of many I suspect. I request you all to aid her, push her, and be open as she is only at the beginning of a very long journey, but one that will benefit the clan if we let it. For the duration of the month her Jounin sensei, Kurina Yuhi-san, will be her primary trainer. As the person most responsible for Hinata's progress, I wouldn't intercede, but any resources you need from the clan will be made available." Kurina nodded. "If there is nothing else, then you are dismissed." Ino waited patiently as several members congratulated or otherwise made offers of support to Hinata. Once they were all gone and it was just Team 8 and her, she approached the Lady of the Hour with a wide smile. "Who knew you could earn so much from a well-timed kick in the nuts?" Ino joked. Hinata giggled. "I think Niji will hate me for the rest of life," she lamented. "He'll get over it," Ino dismissed. She didn't know much about the older boy, but he was considered a prodigy, and just shy of a raging asshole to those he felt beneath him. Really, that was enough. "So what can I do for you? I'll be healed up in a few days, but I don't know how much help I'd be. I was going to ask you to help me, but in a more official capacity," Hinata explained as she handed Ino a mission scroll. "I was hoping you'd do a little information gathering for me." Ino considered the offer. It was the best way for her to help. She trained hard, but she wasn't near Hinata's level of combative skill yet. Besides, it could be treated as training for herself. She was under no illusion that sneaking up on Jounin would be simply so. The heiress smiled as she gave her answer. "Of course," Ino said. Asuma-sensei had already said they wouldn't be taking missions during the month, so she had the free time, and the money could go to some new threads for the upcoming season. "Oh, I saw Kakashi-sensei right before I came here." Ino watched Hinata's face turn sour. "Any word on Naruto-kun?" Ino nodded. "He said he would be on special assignment for the month, so we shouldn't expect to see him much, but he was otherwise fine." "That's good. Besides, I know Naruto-kun will get in contact with us as soon as he can." "Oh, Hinata! We're burning daylight!" Kiba yelled. Hinata got a mischievous glint in her eyes as she turned to her teammate. "I didn't realize you were in a rush to lose to another girl so soon, Kiba-kun," she said. He sputtered excuses about it being a tie, but Shino argued tying when you were expected to win was basically a loss. Ino laughed at their dynamic as it was much more lively than what she had with Shika and Choji. Karen couldn't overcome the feeling of strangeness that swelled within her. It started when she arose from her death that wasn't. It continued with the really nice hospital staff that attended to her, as she regained full mobility. The oddities continued when an aged woman, one claiming to be an advisor to the Hokage, explained what had occurred, that she was free from Kusa and could reside in Konoha safely. Without shame, Karen broke down in front of the stranger. It wasn't what a good kunoichi would do, but she was never really trained to be a kunoichi at all. She was just a thing to be passed around, kept alive long enough to eventually be bred before dying like her mother. She hated Kusa, she hated everyone that resided in that accursed village, and even if it were a cruel trick, the Uzumaki let her tears flow for even the illusion of freedom. The older woman had placed a comforting hand on her back, rubbing it gently, and offered words of comfort and encouragement. Once Karen regained control, it was explained fully that she owed her liberation to one Uzumaki Naruto, the boy she'd seen in the forest. A boy who shared nothing with her but a clan name had gone through such trouble. For one unused to kindness or consideration, it was overwhelming. That sense of being overwhelmed, of the innate strangeness of her new reality, didn't abate as she walked through the village. People smiled at her, greeted her, treated her like she belonged. It was a struggle not to tear up at the treatment, as she didn't want to make her escort feel acquired. Her escort, another peculiarity, had to be the prettiest girl she'd ever seen by a wide margin. "We're here," said the angelic beauty. "Huh?" Karen asked, and internally lamented the undignified response. "This is where you'll be staying, at least until you can arrange your own lodgings." Karen took a good look at the apartment tower, clearly newly built or renovated. It was beyond anything she expected, at least from the outside. "Are you sure?" "Of course," said the older girl with a smile. "Now please follow me," she requested, and Karen did without second thought. She was led to a corner apartment on the top floor, and again Karen was thrown for a loop at the fully furnished, one-bedroom apartment. "I'm sure Naruto-kun will show up to set up your security seals, but the key is sufficient for now. You have vouchers for the grocery store on the grounds and money for any necessities you may need to buy. If you can wait a few days, I may be able to wrangle a friend to go clothes shopping with you. She knows where all the best deals are. And should you need anything else, I'm just 2 doors down." Karen took in all the information. It was on its face easy enough to understand, but she was gripped by the most sincere confusion. "Why?" she asked. "Why any of this? Why all of it? Why?" "You'll have to ask Naruto-kun, as while he is very straightforward, he is not the easiest person to understand, but no, he expects nothing in return. No ninja is that kind," Karen rebuffed. She didn't mean to sound ungrateful, but this simply wasn't how the world worked. "Several months ago I would have agreed. Then on a mission gone bad I was captured by the enemy and held hostage to stall my master from completing his tasks. The same person that captured me went on to become my best friend and gave me a chance to live here for no other reason than I was his friend." "You mean you weren't born here?" "No, I was not. I do not know what you have endured and will not pry, but believe me when I say that you can trust in this." Karen nodded and flopped onto her couch. It was blue and comfy and hers. The older girl let herself out, knowing it took time to adjust to such disparate treatment. Yugao Yuzuki, known to comrades and victims alike as A and B Unico, was having a great day. Hate was having the rare good morning and actually felt well enough he made her breakfast. Then, once she reported for duty, she got to train with Naruto-kun by introducing him to some of the basic routines A and BU recruits are subjected to. He did well, she thought, though wouldn't deny a measure of bias. She even convinced, Reed demanded, he keep the Kuzunaji and started him on beginner katas to wield a jin. Her unit seemed to warm up to him, too. Boar showed him some tips to improve his fire jutsu and walked him through the nature change exercises. Bear sparred with him for a bit and gave him pointers on how to better transfer his natural strength into his blows without sacrificing speed. Even Tenzo took him to the side to train him in something secret. It was great, and while she didn't think the commander's harebrained scheme would work, it wouldn't be due to lack of effort on her part. And the best part? He agreed to call her Yugaone when she was off duty. Oh, she was going to enjoy rubbing that in Kakashi's face. So, as she escorted the 2 loyal Sannin to Naruto's temporary room, she didn't think anything could undercut her mood. That belief should have been a warning that something was amiss, but in her excitement in connecting with what should have been her little brother and relief in paying Kushina-sama's time and effort forward, Yugao was overly optimistic. It all came to a halt when she opened the door. Initially, she didn't believe what she was seeing. It just didn't translate. That's how unbelievable the vision was. Jiraiya's wolf whistle brought her back to reality. One Naruto sitting on his bed writing something down. That was fine. What was not fine were the 3 clones standing around the shirtless ANBU agent. In her sudden onset of bloodlust, she couldn't even remember the agent's code name. Antelope? Gazelle? Dead bitch? That was the one. With lightning speed, her hand was on the hilt of her sword. "What are you doing, agent?" she asked, and watched as her fellow ANBU paled. "Good. Fear makes the kill more satisfying, more real. Completing Hatake-sensei's training? I think I figured out the hidden lesson too, Naruto said as if that explained anything. Then Nico remembered the garment she confiscated because her idiot former captain gave a 12-year-old a bra. She was going to kill him next. Nearing a complete surrender to her bloodlust, she didn't pay much attention to the real Naruto walking over to Tsunade and handing her his notes. The Sannin read over it quickly. Though she wasn't any more accepting of what she was seeing, it was written in her contract she was only allowed to assault Root Anbu in fits of rage. She wanted to admonish her student. She didn't teach him the medical arts to scam on chicks, but quickly realized he wouldn't know what scamming on chicks meant. Besides, despite herself, he was on to something with this preliminary report. Damn genius pervert. Look, Naruto, I'll let you run with this under Shizen's supervision, but no more half-dressed Anbu in your room. Tsunade took a beat as she looked into those unnaturally blue eyes and remembered who she was speaking to. And no fully undressed Anbu in your room either. Got it? Yes, sensei, Naruto answered. And you, scurry along! Tsunade barked at the agent. True, she looked to be only 16, but that was old enough to know better. Said agent grabbed her shirt and hastily retreated, but heard the threat Nico hissed at her as she passed. With the harlot gone and the clones dispelled, Yugao thought the trouble had passed, but Jiraiya stomping into the room suggested otherwise. Without warning, he picked Naruto up and slammed his fist on top of his head. What the hell were you thinking going after Orochimaru alone? Naruto didn't answer verbally, but wasn't going to take in, to his perspective, unprovoked assault without response. As fast as he could, he launched at Jiraiya. The Sannin stood firm, thinking the boy was trying to tackle him, but he was wrong. Using the surface sticking technique, Naruto scaled the Sannin, ending up on Jiraiya's back. Naruto wasted no time applying a choke to his godfather and squeezing as hard as he could. Yugao went to stop the scuffle, but Tsunade stopped her and shook her head. The Anbu was confused, but Tsunade said, "They need this and the idiot won't go overboard." Yugao wasn't completely convinced but did not intercede. Jiraiya hadn't responded to the choke but could acknowledge his godson had some good squeeze applied and a fair bit of natural strength. Still, he wasn't anywhere near Jiraiya's physical strength, and the Toad Sage peeled Naruto off him with minimal effort. He slammed him on his bed hard enough to undo the sheets, which Jiraiya used to wrap Naruto in, and swung him around his head several times before, once again, slamming the Uzumaki on his bed. Maybe it was overconfidence or underestimation, but Jiraiya never expected the immediate response to his juvenile attack. He certainly wasn't prepared for the dynamic entry Naruto performed near flawlessly. Jiraiya dropped to the floor, Naruto following him as the dizziness overcame him. The only response the Sannin could muster was to his teammate. "Nade, he kicked me. In the dick!" Tsunade ignored him and picked Naruto up. They had work to do. Chapter 22. Hokage-sama. A voice called and broke Hiruzen from his paperwork. His finely honed mind picking out details that didn't seem to fit the situation. His longtime assistant was nervous, clutching a package to her chest that she was likely there to give to him. The package itself couldn't have been distressing, she wouldn't hold it so close to her, which led her to believe it was his reaction that concerned her. He couldn't blame the poor woman, he'd been snappish for days and looking for a fight that never came. "Tamano, please come in." He welcomed her with a friendly tone. "What can I do for you?" "A package arrived late last night from the Reikage. We submitted it to all security checks and it came back clear," she explained. "Okay," he said. Tamano allowed her graying locks to cover her eyes as if she were bracing for impact. "It's a new bingo book, Hokage-sama." Oh, Hiruzen thought. The new editions were to be released today. If I sent one specifically to him, it meant he had an entry he thought Hiruzen wouldn't like. It was a tradition started by the second Mizukage. Sometimes it was a veiled threat, others a sign of recognition, but there was always a motive behind it. "Just leave the package with me, it'll be fine," Hiruzen assured her. The woman did as instructed and departed a little faster than the aged Hokage felt necessary. He'd been surly, but he wasn't some fire-breathing dragon. Opening the package, Hiruzen snatched a falling item before it could hit his desk. Unfolding the piece of paper, the Hokage realized it was a letter from his Kumo counterpart. "Hey old monkey, thought you could hide Minato's boy from me, eh? You had a good, little run, but that's over now. Tell him to get faster. I haven't had a rival in speed for over a decade, and I will judge if he's fit to replace his father. Don't worry, it won't be at the finals. I'm sure you'd love for me to have an accident on my way to your village. Who knows, maybe the overbearing tree will become too limiting and he'll want to know what it's like when the sky's the limit. Besides, I hear he may have a taste for a flavor of kunoichi only found in Kumo. Only time will tell. Hiruzen fought the urge to scramble a platoon of ANBU, his desire to remind I that most accidents happen at home not befitting his position. Finally getting to the latest bingo book, Hiruzen thumbed to the section marked with a yellow tab. He opened it and read his grandson's entry as he lamented his failure to well and truly keep him hidden before he was ready. Name, Uzumaki Naruto. Age, 12. Alias, Konoha's Kuroi Gustapepa. Affiliations, Konoha, Toad Clan, Jiraiya of the Sannin. Master, Uzumaki Clan, Kushina Uzumaki. Mother, deceased. Skills, Fuinjutsu, Bojutsu, Katon Jutsu. Rank, Genin Bio, son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, student of Hatake Kakashi and Jiraiya of the Sannin. Single-handedly killed over 60 ninja during a solo raid of a base belonging to Orochimaru of the Sannin and his Otogeku ninja. Also managed to defeat and capture Orochimaru in a separate engagement, killing 8 more ninja in the skirmish. Possibly specializing in infiltration and mass exterminations. The shinobi is silent, calm, and analytical. A threat to even experienced ninja if they are not careful. Engage only if mission critical, Jounin or Chunin teams. Genin flee. Bounty, 1 Ryo. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Hiruzen chuckled at the alias. The yellow ghost pepper would have sent Kushina over the moon. He could see the animated woman bragging to Biwako and him about it, and then the pair having to spend the next hour talking her out of going to kill Ai. It brought a pain to his chest, thinking about his wife and Kushina. On what they were deprived of who'd been deprived of them. It hurt, and while he had plenty of work to do and needed to inform Naruto's teachers about this, Hiruzen took a moment as not even Hokage were free from grief. You seem in a good mood, Tsunade-sama, Shizen observed as she took a seat across from her mentor. You say that like it's a rarity, Shizu-chan. Tsunade responded but never took her eyes off her work. The two were in her temporary office, Dragon having made some space for her as a concession for stealing her student. When Shizen didn't respond, Tsunade took it as confirmation that was her exact position. She couldn't deny the truth of it, so didn't take offense. Well, it's nice to cut again. It's nice to be doing medicine again, and if I can figure out my part of this stasis solution will have a dramatic impact on in-mission fatalities. Shizen smiled and nodded. What are you leaning toward? Foam. Some kind of cryofoam, but knowing where I want to go doesn't necessarily get me there any faster. I'll figure it out, eventually, she said. She was the queen of elixirs, so it would be a blow to her pride to be stalled. How about your little project? Tsunade asked, though her tone was anything but encouraging. Really now, Tsunade-sama, Shizen admonished. This is as valid a topic for medical treatment as anything else. I know, sorry. Really, how are things coming along? Tsunade asked more sincerely. Good. We have years of data and can say with a high degree of confidence that kunoichi experience a higher percentage of lower back injuries, the rate only increasing as activity diminishes. Because the diminished use of chakra no longer buttresses the lower back muscles? Tsunade asked. She had to admit, she was a little embarrassed. She had never considered the problem. She'd heard of civilian women complaining of lower back pains and they all assumed she suffered the same, but they were wrong. Subconsciously, she and all other kunoichi had a way to avoid those pains, but it also left the muscles tense and easily strained in comparison to shinobi. Her main problem was its strained credulity that her other student came to this insight because that idiot Kakashi gave him a brow. She knew his mind didn't work like other people's and could accept it, but even that had its limits. She refused to accept that medical advancements would come via the boy's libido. Refused. And potential treatments? Tsunade asked, pressing on. I've been in touch with our physical therapy team and they are working on it. Uh-huh. And the other thing? The Senju questioned, looking down at Shizen's chest. Oh, it's wonderful. I almost forget they are there sometimes. Her student beamed. Naruto hadn't reinvented the wheel, but a seal that can calibrate to and redirect the same force that the breasts exert in each cup. It was inventive. I still don't see why you had to be the test subject, Tsunade stated. Because Nico-san and you scared most of the female ANBU away from Naruto-kun when he just wanted to help. Uh-huh, the blonde medic said, but not at all buying it as the only reason. The effects of the newest addition to the bingo book rippled throughout the village. Three men gleamed in anticipation of finally upholding a promise over a decade in the making. Two foreign kunoichi lamented the rakage reveling in his man-crush on the Yondaime Hokage, and his delight in thumbing his nose at the Sandaime Hokage. And one Chunin instructor jumped at every shadow, terrified the ANBU would snatch him up at any moment. None of that had reached Naruto yet, the rookie Chunin having been summoned by Kakashi, via Pakken, to meet him at Team 7's training grounds. As it was Hound making the request, Commander Dragon allowed Naruto to depart. So, here the blonde sat, Pakken on his lap as he gently patted his head as he watched his teammate train with Kakashi. They hadn't sparred for long, not even 30 minutes, but Naruto already saw some problems. Sasuke was shaky and his body had clearly hit a wall well before he was accustomed. Sweat poured from his brow and he was breathing through his mouth. It was time for him to go to work. "Stop!" he called out as he approached sensei and teammate. He retrieved a bottle of hand sanitizer and gestured for Sasuke to sit. The Uchiha did just that. Naruto activated the diagnostic jutsu and mentally recorded notes. Within 20 minutes he had reached a conclusion. Your nutrition isn't adequate for the level of training you're doing. Your body is forcing your chakra to compensate, but the increased usage means you aren't recovering as fast at night, which requires more chakra to compensate. Had you continued the cycle, you would have gone into shock from chakra exhaustion within 3 days. Sasuke nodded, masking his discomfort with the emotionless tone that provided the explanation. The Uzumaki handed Kakashi a list while Sasuke digested what was said. He was unhappy with the news but relieved to know there was a reason he hadn't felt like he'd progressed in the last few days. He thought he had a well-balanced diet, so that was concerning. "What did you hand Kakashi?" Sasuke asked. "A list of vitamins and supplements. You could get with a nutritionist as well, but if this is just for the exams, then the supplements would be adequate. No more training today and none tomorrow." Sasuke nodded and elected to wait on going to see someone, as it'd just take time out of his training. Sasuke wanted to argue for the sake of his pride, but he felt like crap and could use the rest, so he nodded. "Why didn't you give the list to me?" he inquired. "Hataki-sensei handles the team's expense account," Naruto answered. "Oh, okay. But what now?" Sasuke asked with a little heat. Naruto looked at him in confusion. "The expense account," he repeated slowly. Sasuke-kun. Greasing the right palm can take you further than violence in many cases, but it wouldn't be right for ninja to lose money while in service to the village, so for that and other various outflows, we are reimbursed. And thanks to Naruto-kun bribing Ibiki, I've hit my cap for the fiscal, which means I can request a limit increase." Sasuke found it weird how happy his sensei sounded about mundane administrative tasks when he was near impossible to get a rise out of for anything else. The Uchiha just shook his head. Even with his analytical mind demanding to reach a conclusion, he decided Kakashi was unexplainable. It was just simpler that way. Kakashi performing the summoning jutsu broke Sasuke from his thoughts. "Okay, you lot have fun with Naruto-kun," he said, and then turned to Sasuke. "Let's go." With no more prompting as he took off. Sasuke could faintly hear the Nikan barking in the distance. It didn't take much effort to catch up to Kakashi, and the Uchiha was curious. "Why did you summon your dogs?" "They needed exercise. Naruto likes playing with them, and I was taking time away from his own training." Seemed like a fair trade, Kakashi explained, but the need to needle his student pushed him further. "Are you jealous? You want to play with them?" "What?" "No," Sasuke denied. "Oh, okay," Kakashi said. "You know, Hokage-Sams is thinking of pulling Naruto from the team." "Why?" the Uchiha asked. "Officially, both of you are high-profile targets, so it would be safer to have you separated in case another village tries anything. Unofficially, I think Hokage-sama believes Naruto's team with Jiraiya is better for him since he actually gets along with Haku and Sai." Kakashi was hardly being subtle, but Sasuke got his point. "We can work together and not be friends." That is true. You could also accept that he's not Itachi and open up a little." Kakashi pressed. Sasuke's shoulders dropped. Yes, he could, except no, he really couldn't. He knew Naruto wasn't stoic but impaired. He really couldn't help being that way, but his manner constantly reminded him of the person he hated most. That Naruto seemed to be better than him didn't help matters. "I'm sorry, Kakashi. I can't." "It's fine, Sasuke," Kakashi said. "I'm not asking for an overnight turnaround. Besides, we need to focus on Gaara. Everything else is secondary." "HN," Sasuke grunted in agreement. He was jumping at everything. Every unsuspected shadow, every creeping sound. That one entry in one book reduced him to this. That the QB reduced him to this nearly pushed was enraging. But there was no time for rage. Rage would scare the brats would alert Irika. Or maybe a couple of jounin. Or, sage forbid, the ANBU. He didn't know why he even bothered with the new bingo book. Sure, it was causing a stir at the check-in station, but he'd gotten used to ignoring the weak fools of this village. But today was different. He engaged and learned. In black print, submitted by Kumo, therefore cleared by the Reikage himself. Uzumaki Naruto, the demon in human form, looked back at him. Those dead eyes judged him just like the little bastard did in real life. Mizuki hated it. The judgment. Hated it. The beast. Hated it. This village that allowed the beast to judge him. How, he asked himself. How could the QB capture Orochimaru? And how long before the man gave him up? Mizuki didn't know but couldn't wait to find out. He needed to escape, to put as many miles between him and the land of fire as he could. His life as he knew it was over, he had no doubt. And while he was filled with panic, even fear could override his true nature. Mizuki was a man gripped by resentments, large and small. He resented never becoming more than a Chunin instructor. He resented the Hokage's lack of trust in him. He resented having to rely on Orochimaru to get stronger and gain some recognition. A Nukenin only free because of the Sandaime. In that resentment a foul idea was taking seed. His life was over. His life. What few friends, what paltry relationships he allowed himself would end. He'd be on the run for the remainder, ducking cutthroats until his last days. It was to be a miserable existence, he knew, but he couldn't picture giving up. A terrible life was better than no life by Mizuki's estimation, but it didn't mean he couldn't get a little satisfaction. All right, everyone, head out for target practice, Irika ordered. The children put away their things and rushed to the door. Mizuki watched as his chance for a taste of revenge was one of the last out. Luckily, Irika had run off to catch up with the others. Hey, Konohamaru, wait, he said in his friendly voice. Yes, Mizuki-sensei? He asked, turning to the man standing at the back of the empty classroom. Irika asked me to pull you back. Since you're doing so well, I'm going to teach you how to throw a Fuma Shuriken. It's my specialty. Really? He asked, excitedly. Mizuki smirked. It'd be too easy. Yes, really. Thing is, the Fuma Shuriken is large and powerful, so we'll have to go somewhere else to practice. Konohamaru nodded and followed along, Mizuki making sure to chart a path out of Irika's eyesight. Mizuki led the little bastard to a shed that contained a go bag. He chopped the Sarutobi on the neck and stuffed him into it, and then fled. He knew he had to be breaking personal bests with how fast he was moving, but he had to create as much distance as possible. Taking to the trees, passing through training areas, his only thought was to reach the wall. He repeated it like a mantra. Reach the wall, reach the wall. He timed it with his breathing and running motion. Every step a word. Reach the wall. Reach the wall. He was focused and felt more like a shinobi than he had in years. Reach the wall. Reach the wall. In all his focus, in the pleasure of possibly getting revenge, the fear of getting caught, Mizuki stopped thinking about his hostage. One he hadn't restrained, just knocked out. A little boy afraid, yes, but not unschooled in the ways of the ninja. A boy who took his surrogate brother's words to heart, so when Naruto told the young Sarutobi to always have a cutting instrument on him, he complied. The fabric of the travel bag was no match for Kono's dagger. Mizuki heard the rip, but even as it broke him from his internal chant, it still took him a few beats to realize what happened. Just long enough for Konohamaru to engage the emergency protocols. Firstly, one of his fuin beads was a flashbang, and the boy tossed it toward his sensei before running off. The next step would take time, so in his panicked excitement, he simply took off in the opposite direction. Ugh, little shit! Mizuki yelled. His vision was slowly returning, but his hearing was still compromised. He could still track the brat's trail. He took off. He, initially, was going to send pieces of the kid back to his grandfather, but now he'd just kill him outright. Mizuki retrieved his collapsible Fuma Shuriken. His hands were shaking. He felt like a wild animal driven mad with bloodlust, and it spiked when his sights landed on his prey. He let loose his weapon of choice, delighted when he heard it cut through the air. But he didn't hear the squelch of blade penetrating flesh nor the screams of pain that would follow. Not even the thunk of the projectile hitting a tree. No, somehow the little shit ducked at the exact right time. Mizuki wouldn't stand for that. He appeared above the boy and picked him up, punching him in the gut with his free hand. Spittle flew, and his eyes tightened. Yes, that was the look of pain he wanted to see. But maybe he could heap on some additional agony before he offed the boy. To get his attention, Mizuki slapped Konohamaru twice, front then back of the hand. You must think you're so special being the honorable grandson. Walking around with your chest puffed out. Even more so because of your precious Nizan, and yet you don't know that they are lying to you. Naruto Uzumaki may have been born human, but the Yondaime, his own father, sealed the Kyuubi into him. He's the fox now, that's why he isn't like us. A filthy demon couldn't mimic human emotions. Me. Mizuki-sensei. Konohamaru spoke. What brat? Shut up. The boy answered as he placed his Fuin bracelet on Mizuki's wrist. The man felt his body seize as the shock seal went into effect. He dropped Konohamaru before he hit the ground and the boy ran off, bruised and battered but still able to move. Mabui was tuning out Omoi and his particular brand of speculation. She, too, was curious about the Fuma shuriken that landed on their training area, but as it was nowhere near any of them, chalked it up to an accident. Karui demanded the lone shinobi shut up. Samui was doing an excellent job of ignoring them. Mabui didn't fault Karui. Omo could be vexing, his fantastical paranoia an ever-present attribute. The prudent choice was to wait for the owner to arrive, to be calm about the whole thing and not make up grand stories about someone being abducted and making a hasty escape. Until she saw a small boy, bloody nose and swollen cheeks, running toward her like he was being pursued by the embodiment of death. She stood and slowly approached. The boy was clearly panicked and didn't seem to notice they were foreign ninja, as that would have only made things worse. What happened? She asked, but the answer never came. As soon as he heard the landing of the man behind him, the boy instinctively got behind her. Shivering, he was too terrified to do much else. Oh ho, it seems you have found my wayward student, the man said with fake sincerity. She could see the tightening of his eyes, the repressed fury. No instructor should be that mad at a child. Aren't you a little far out for an academy student? Mabui asked. This one likes to skip and spy on ninja to learn cool techniques. It is my job to get my back to class, so if you would, come on, Konohamaru, we've wasted enough time and any further delays will make your punishment worse. Mabui felt the boy clutched at the back of her top. Things weren't adding up and she could tell her team had reached a similar conclusion. It wasn't a leap to conclude the Fuma shuriken belonged to him, and he'd somehow managed to miss the child. As a moral being, she couldn't let the child return to his custody, but if Kumo harmed another Konoha ninja outside of the exams, it would do irreparable harm to her village and its relationship with Konoha. But once again, Mabui's internal deliberations were interrupted by the arrival of another party. This one, however, had no interest in talking. She saw the gleam of a blade before she could fully make out the newest arrival and wasn't sure of who she was seeing until said figure executed a kick to the throat of the falling man. Then she heard and saw the dogs as they surrounded the much smaller attacker and his victim. Even with his orange hood up, she could see the distinctive blonde hair of one Uzumaki Naruto. The way Konohamaru darted toward him made her believe the two had a pre-existing relationship. The flying tackle into a hug all but confirmed it. She watched as the blonde said something to the boy and then several of the dogs departed with him. Only the one with sunglasses stayed as Naruto tied up the unconscious Chunin. After securely binding the man and picking him up and playing him across his shoulders, the Uzumaki made eye contact with Mabui. Mabui-san. He greeted, or she assumed it was a greeting. Uzumaki-san. She replied back. You look nice today. He offered, and she hadn't been expecting it. She tried to deflect as to not encourage any teasing from Samui later. Thank you, but this is just my standard outfit while on duty. Oh, he said and paused. Then you must look nice every day. He said no more, disappearing in a shunshin with the dog hot on his trail. Sitting at her table and sharing a pot of tea with Karen-chan had become an enjoyable feature of Haku's days. Getting to know the girl over the last few weeks was a delight. The two had a lot to bond over and Karen-chan seemed to warm up to Haku's gentle prodding. She thought the girl was a little fixated on Naruto, but given her utter devotion to Zabuza-sama she could hardly judge. It was nice making another friend and having someone fawn over Chappie-kun, as he was a hard-working bunny and deserved it. A heavy knock on her door surprised the pair. She hadn't been expecting company. That Konohamaru was there with 3 of Kakashi's summons further confused her, though that was overridden by his injuries. The largest dog, Bull, gave her a rundown of what happened, but she could tell there was more as she escorted Konohamaru to her couch. The boy hadn't spoken much beyond a pat greeting and wouldn't even meet the Yuki's eyes. "Kono-kun, what's wrong?" she asked. She could tell he was torn, and whatever it was he needed to share. He shot a quick look at Karen. "That's Uzumaki Karen. She's going to be staying in Konoha for a bit." "Niken has a clansman?" he asked in genuine wonder. Haku nodded. "They met during the Chunin exams. I'm sure she'd tell you the story sometime if you're interested." "Sure would," Karen reassured. "But why don't I give you two some alone time for now?" she offered. "No. Niken would say it's rude to make your guest leave because I showed up. I think he'd understand given the circumstance," Haku stated. "And if you don't feel comfortable talking in front of Karen-chan, that's fine." Konohamaru shook his head in the negative. He looked down once more and his body started shaking. I did everything wrong. I was so scared. I dropped Niken's dagger, and would have been killed if I didn't trip on a tree root. He wouldn't have been too afraid to even think. "I'm a coward!" the boy bellowed. "Konohamaru," Haku said as she tilted his head up. "Being afraid doesn't make you a coward. And you're comparing who Naruto-kun is now to who you are now. Either of us know how he'd have handled this. But what I do know is a Chunin tricked, betrayed, and abducted you. His goal was to flee with you. Your goal was to escape. You're here, he's captured. That's a win. But I didn't do anything. You escaped. You stalled. I'm assuming Naruto-kun gave you something to signal him if you were ever in danger, so you called for backup. You did everything that could be expected of you, Kono-kun. Then why do I feel like a failure? Because when someone makes you afraid, it can also make you feel weak and small. All the stories we have show courage as overcoming our fears, but I think survival takes its own kind of strength. And for ninja, for those who endure, the ability to survive is central to our being. And sometimes a part of that survival is sheer dumb luck. We can't control luck. But that's partially why we train. Being faster, stronger, smarter doesn't guarantee victory, but they tip the odds in your favor. But you should never think any situation presents you with an absolute chance of victory. That Chunin did, and now look at him, defeated by an academy student. Niken Dash, his goal was to abduct you. Yours was to escape. While all the rest matters, in a fight between ninja, the one that achieves their goal is the victory, the one who doesn't is the loser. This is your win, Konohamaru. You understand? The boy nodded and graced her with a hesitant smile. She left to get her first aid kit, but upon her return she saw the boy sleeping, Chappie-kun faithfully keeping watch. Chapter 23. Are those 600s? Commander Dragon asked his subordinate. She nodded and he believed her. She was a good daughter of ANBU. As he stalked around the surgical suite to make sure he had all he needed, he thought about his wayward son. Clearly his hound dog had forgotten his discipline since he'd left Dragon's family, but like a good patriarch, he did not abandon his children even upon their departure. He would help his son, even if it hurt, and impress upon him the need to take better care of his future son. But that was for later. He had a more pressing matter to attend to. He looked at the fool who wasn't long for this world. Of all the people to kidnap, he picked the old man's grandson during a time the man was already walking around like a fire-breathing dragon. The sheer idiocy of it. Add to that, ANBU had to make sure none of the medical staff knew who paralyzed the fool, for they'd have refused to treat him. Never cross a chef, lover, or medic in the world of ninja, for there wasn't a faster way to depart from this world. And the medical staff loved their chibi, loved that the son of the yondaime was a healer. He couldn't guarantee a mystery blood clot wouldn't have found its way into the traitor's brain if they knew how, and why he got knifed twice in the spinal column, and got his trachea crushed. Which, doing while coming out of a shunshin, was pretty impressive. He'd have a new son yet. He'd just have to get the old man to see reason. Or get him a special tobacco blend. 3 slaps woke the foolish traitor up. The man blinked in confusion, eyes adjusting to the mostly darkened room, the only light positioned directly about the traitor. He tried to squirm but stilled when he saw the mask. Dragon smiled behind it as the fool's expression gave it all away. Oh, that fear, that was the genuine reaction, but pride forced a sneer on the lips of the fool. He went to say something, likely something snarky about how he wasn't afraid or wouldn't be broken, as if you got to be the ANBU commander without the ability to break all Chunin. He slapped the man again before the words could leave his mouth. Understand one thing, Onion, I'm a busy man. If I'm not asking you a question, you are not to speak. Are we clear, Onion? The man frowned but nodded. The response earned him another slap. His jaw likely couldn't take much more. Why? He asked and was answered with another slap. When I ask an Onion a question, I expect a verbal response. Are we clear? Yes, he responded promptly. Now, as I am feeling magnanimous, I will allow you one question. You may ask it now. Why do you call me an onion? Dragon wasn't surprised but amused by the question. At least the man wasn't lying to himself nor going to fake innocence. That was good. Oh, it's simple really. You non-NBU are loud, unable to work alone, and usually not worth a damn until a generous amount of heat is applied to you. Alright, I think I should inform you what is about to happen. See, I'm only really interested in one question, but I have to assume you're going to lie to me. True, I could torture you until I believe you've divulged the truth, but I have a lot of my plate, and can't spend all day dicing an onion. So, I've come to a compromise. Dragon grabbed one of the fluffy, all-white towels from a nearby surgical stand and slid a water-filled bucket next to Mizuki's bed. This is a 600 thread count towel. I'm going to wet one end of it and force it down your throat. Admittedly, a lower thread count would make the initial ingestion easier, but I've found the results inconsistent, so you get the 600. Well, Onion, when your stomach acid starts to digest the towel, I'm going to yank it back up, bringing your stomach lining with it. The Chunin had a mixture of disbelief and bone-deep fear on his face, as if one was a defense for the other. Dragon didn't begrudge the man his self-deception. Reality would become too painful to deny soon enough. 29 hours, 47 minutes is the average length of time people last when they endure this. Nearly 30 hours of excruciating pain. I figure a full day of this, and you'll tell the truth just so I end your misery. I'll talk, the man yelled. He was slapped for his slip in decorum. Of course you'll talk, Onion. You'll tell me whatever I want to hear, but I only want the truth, not what you think I believe the truth to be. In order for that to happen, you need to endure this trial. Endure, and then I can believe you. No, I'll talk. I'll tell the truth, he pleaded. This guy really didn't want his stomach lining removed. He almost felt bad for slapping him again. Okay, Onion, I'm going to give you one chance to avoid the most painful 24 of your life. Were you ordered to kidnap Konohamaru Sarutobi as some kind of dead man cell scheme by Orochimaru? No. I just knew he'd been captured and thought he'd reveal I'd been working for him. I resented the Sandaime and the QB brats, so I thought kidnapping Konohamaru would be revenge. And you plan to, what, escape with the honorable grandson? Maybe send pieces of him back to the Sandaime before you killed the kid? Yes, Mizuki said, almost pleading to be believed. It worked. Dragon patted the man on the shoulder. Good news, Onion, I believe you. I won't be pulling your stomach lining out through your mouth. But there is some bad news, too. The other agent appeared next to Dragon. This is Captain Monkey. That means nothing to you, it shouldn't. However, if you could remove your mask, Captain, we're all friends here. Mizuki really started to squirm when he saw the captain's face. Yes, you tried to kidnap Kana Sarutobi's son, and well, Onion, you went after my family. What's the penalty for that, Captain? Onion gets dice, she replied neutrally. And there is no one better for the job. Well, my part in this is over. Take as much time as you need, Captain, the room is yours. Thank you, Commander, she said as she removed 2 karambits from her back mounts. As Dragon departed, he could see the glow of the Katon chakra-infused blades reflected in the window. That took care of one bit of business, now to another. Then the leader of the Special Operations Ninja could get some lunch before he spent his afternoon attempting to calm the old man down with the help of Danzo, Sage Save Him. The hospital staff was kind enough to provide him a temporary office so he could settle all matters before heading back to the ANBU barracks. As he entered the small room, Hound stood at attention. It was good he, at least, remembered that much. It didn't stop Dragon from putting the slightly taller man in a headlock nor punching his crown a few times. Hound, Dragon began, but his son dared to interrupt him. Kakashi, he said. Silly child. He punched his head a few more times to get it working correctly. Hound? The upward inflection letting the erstwhile agent know it was a question. Yes, Commander? A few love taps always worked. When I put Uzumaki Naruto in your custody for the day, were you unclear of my expectations? No, Commander. And do you believe your summons are an adequate replacement for your direct supervision? In summary SP-. He received a few more love taps as he was backsliding. No, sir. But Sasuke requires a delicate touch, especially as Naruto reminds him of Itachi. I cannot let him think I favor Naruto or encourage any competition between the two. He's doing better, but he still has some pronounced triggers, sir. Excellent reasoning, Hound, but that's why clones exist. Who wants to expend the chakra for that? Hound asked and received several more love taps. You've lost your way since you've left my den, Hound. Don't you worry, Papa is here for his children. I know you've been working your way back, but I'm going to expedite the process. Every day you are in the village you will report to me before you train your students or take missions. Am I understood? Yes, sir, Hound said in complete compliance. Ah, there was his good doggy. Fantastic, you can leave, Dragon said, releasing the jounin. As Kakashi reached the door, Dragon stopped him with a final warning. If you arrive late or flake on me, I'll beat you strictly with body shots and then tie you up maskless by the ladies' onsen. He saw the normally unflappable man shiver. Good, he thought. The pretty bastard would want to protect his peace by not having his real face revealed. You gotta let us know when you make chunin, little man. We promised Minato-sama we'd take you out on the town so Kushina-sama would only be mad at us. Iwashi said. Naruto had been sitting with the trio as they arrived with Hataki-sensei. He introduced them as part of his father's guardian platoon. Apparently, it is up to the Hokage if they want an ANBU detail or regular forces. His Aji-san seemed to prefer ANBU, but his dad was different. He had to inform Commander Dragon of what transpired but had returned to the waiting area with the three. They seemed nice and had stories about his parents that not even Hataki-sensei or Jiraiya knew. They said they were designated his fun uncles. He wondered if there were more around selected to be his unfun uncles, but decided to worry about it should the need arise. I have been promoted, Naruto said. The three looked at him with wide eyes. In his experience, that could denote surprise or even disbelief. True, he wasn't in his vest. His Aji-san requested he not wear it until after the exams and his departure from his protective detail. I assure you, it is the truth. We believe you, Naruto. It's just, being promoted mid-exams has never happened. We have to celebrate. Genma exclaimed. It's the middle of the day. Kakashi rained on the Triad's parade as he returned. Besides, there is a Team 7 tradition I have to do with my newly promoted Chunin. I'm sure you understand, the copy ninja said as he ushered Naruto out. Fine, tonight, Kakashi. We promise Minato-sama, Rado yelled. Kakashi waved dismissively but knew he'd have to allow the outing. He just didn't want his chibi getting influenced by those dorks just because Minato-sensei was too kind to them. The two left the secure hospital entrance and made their way back to a main street. Hataki-sensei, Naruto called. Kakashi answered. Can I go see Kono-chan before we conduct the Team 7 ritual? He asked. Kakashi mushed his hair a little and I smiled. Of course, we can hurry right over. He performed a shunshin expecting Chibi to keep up, which he did. Upon arrival at their destination, a small, boy-shaped projectile launched at Naruto. He easily absorbed the impact. The boy mumbled something that not even Kakashi's keen hearing could decipher. I can't understand you, Kono-chan. What are you saying? Naruto asked. The Sarutobi breathed in deeply and broke away from his surrogate brother. Kakashi could tell he was forcing himself to meet Naruto's eyes. Ni-chan, are you the Kyuubi? That had not been the expected question. Kakashi swiftly concluded that the traitor must have told Konohamaru in a moment of spite or to demoralize the boy, maybe both. He wondered how Naruto would react to having his largest, and most poorly kept, secret revealed to not only Konohamaru but Haku, as well as not even the normally serene Kunoichi could hide her surprise. This could be a major turning point, and Kakashi wondered if Naruto would deny it outright, fearful of reject. I would seem to lack the requisite tails, Kono-chan, he answered. Ni-chanen! Konohamaru bellowed, which allowed Kakashi to realize Chibi wasn't being overly literal but teasing his little brother. Kakashi didn't know he knew how to tease someone. Why don't we take this inside? Kakashi suggested, as the balcony of one's apartment isn't the place to discuss S-class secrets. Everyone took a seat, the three youngest on the couch with the bunny taking residence on Konohamaru's lap. Kakashi thought the bunny was way too alert for a pet, and wondered if a guard bunny was a thing. He then wondered if he could get Pakin to train the rabbit up a bit. A guard rabbit seemed cool. Okay, I'm assuming Mizuki Toji told you something he shouldn't have. Whether Naruto answers any questions, this is an S-class secret. I know you know what that means, Haku-chan, but for you Konohamaru that means if you talk about this with anyone without Hokage-sama's or Naruto's permission you could be put to death. Now, are you sure you want to continue? He asked, but he knew the answer. The boy's head nod was perfunctory. Naruto lifted up his shirt and channeled chakra to reveal Minato-sensei's last work. I am not the Kyuubi, but the Yondaime did seal him inside of me when I was a baby. Why do you call your dad Yondaime instead of your dad? Until recently it was supposed to be a secret and I haven't gotten adjusted to it not being one anymore. Anything else? Have you met it? Konohamaru asked. Yes. Naruto answered easily, but that shocked Kakashi. Was he supposed to meet with it? Was that concerning? He knew Chibi was a sealing genius, but you didn't just talk to Bijou, did you? What was he like? Konohamaru kept up as if Naruto had simply met a fellow traveler on the road to life. He had 3 whisker marks like me, Naruto said as he ran 3 fingers across his cheek. Big, sharp canines that stuck out like this. He pantomimed using his index fingers. And 2 fluffy ears. Did you get to pet them? Konohamaru asked, and Kakashi was getting worried about the sanity of the Sandaime's grandson. No, Naruto, of course, answered, as it was obvious as far as Kakashi was concerned. I asked, but he said maybe some other time, and it was at this time Kakashi realized he'd have to be more worried about the amount of Kushina his student had in him. Okay, I think that's enough questions for now. Naruto and I really need to be going. Haku-chan, if you could escort Konohamaru-kun to the Sarutobi compound, I'm sure his grandfather would appreciate it. Of course. She responded, but he could tell she was digesting the latest reveal. Haku-chan, Naruto said to get her attention. Thank you for looking after Kono-chan. She smiled in such a way that would break the hearts of many because Kakashi suspected that smile would only ever be aimed at one person. Of course I would, you're my friend. Naruto nodded but said no more, mushed Konohamaru's hair and departed. The pair returned to Training Ground 3, and while Kakashi would report that Naruto had been in contact with the Kyuubi, it wasn't a pressing concern. He pulled out a single bell. Every time one of us got promoted, Minato-sensei would redo the bell test. As Sasuke can't train today and Sakura is busy elsewhere, it'll just be the 2 of us. Hold nothing back and come at me with the intent to kill. You have 2 hours to get the bell and keep it. Any questions? He asked. He dodged the incoming kunai meant as Naruto's response. Momentarily distracted, he lost sight of his student. He didn't even mind Chibi didn't wait until he said go. He smiled, believing this was going to be a lot of fun. Sakura-chan. A soft voice called out to the genin. She blushed at having been caught not paying attention. The pinkette was just so nervous to be here, in this office for reasons unknown. She admired the woman's decor, clean and classic compared to the more modern look in most of the village. She was beyond shocked when an advisor to the Hokage requested to meet her. Sorry, Koharu-sama. Sakura apologized. Think nothing of it, dear. Koharu-sama said. The elderly woman's eyes were still sharp, and Sakura felt every inch of her was being measured as she sat across from the senior ninja. Whatever she was looking for must have been located as Koharu-sama began to speak again. You must be a very special kunoichi to be on a team with the last Uchiha and the Yondaime's only child. Sakura answered. She really didn't know what to say, but she didn't feel special. Koharu-sama laughed. It was slight, controlled, but still felt genuine. You doubt it? I understand. It was not easy to judge myself against Hiruzen, but it taught me early on that there were a lot of ways to be effective and wield power. I would be happy to tutor you how to show you the effectiveness in soft power, if you're willing to do something for me. Koharu-sama offered. Sakura was so happy that she didn't unthinkingly accept the offer, as a part of her was ready to jump at it. What would you have me do? She asked instead. Koharu-sama said nothing at first, instead passing a file folder to her. Sakura inspected the contents but was confused as they were all pictures of Naruto with various people. All women, her mind corrected. Hinata, Haku, Ino, Tenten were there. The examiner from the second part of the Chunin exams, Team 8's sensei, Senju Tsunade-sama, and even the kunoichi from Suna and some dark-skinned woman from Kumo. Since the time of the Shodai, there has been a legend amongst the elite shinobi of Konoha. A belief that one would arise and give an air of respectability to their lecherous desires. One who could seduce and ensnare kunoichi as easy as a genin uses the replacement jutsu. The long-awaited gentleman has never emerged, and a dedicated coterie has worked to ensure he wouldn't. Every shinobi with the potential to become the prophesied one has found themselves taken fully by one of the brightest, strongest kunoichi. You want me to date and Naruto? Sakura stuttered, which earned another bout of laughter. No, dear girl, we never set them up. We just made sure their paths crossed, but I know of your affection for Sasuke. No, dear, this is where soft power comes into play. Because of how Naruto was reared and his development issues, we assumed he would ultimately not be an issue. We were wrong, and because he did not have a lot of direct guidance, he is more open to heterodox lifestyles. But it wouldn't do for the son of the Yondaime to be known as a lecher or frivolous playboy. What I'm requesting is you play more of an older sister role to help direct him to the right path. Sakura mulled over Koharu-sama's request. She didn't know if she could do it, as she wasn't exactly close with Naruto, even as her esteem for him had skyrocketed after the Forest of Death. Wouldn't he see her as a nuisance? And possibly more importantly, wouldn't Hinata kill her if she interfered? That thought led Sakura to another thought and question. What about the kunoichi you put in his path? Was it not Hinata? Koharu-sama shook her head and appeared to sadden for a moment. Hinata-chan was much too meek for her to play such a position, and while she's gained a great deal of confidence over the years, she credits it to Naruto-kun's influence. She's already under his sway. Her and that Yuki girl. If your friend, Ino, isn't careful, she'll be next. As for who I had slated for that position, it was an older girl. She was his guard for a short time, but she's no longer an option, to my great disappointment. So, will you help me, Sakura-chan? Yes, I will. Hours later, Temari was found resting comfortably in her bed. She trained hard all day and enjoyed a post-dinner shower. She was asleep shortly after her head hit the pillow. Her dreamless sleep was interrupted though, and Temari wondered if she'd gotten too comfortable in this village filled with enemies. The feeling of a kunai grazing her stomach and the pupilless eyes of one of the proctors screamed that she'd indeed gotten too comfortable. Finally, Cookie, the woman said. I was wondering if I'd actually have to stab you to get you to wake up, she concluded. Temari went rigid, an amateurish mistake, but she couldn't understand how this woman got past Baki-sensei, Kenkuro, and Gaara. Gaara didn't sleep and was always at the ready for assassins. How? Temari voiced, but the tip of the kunai being pressed into her with just enough force to not draw blood stopped her. Cookie, I get into and out of places I shouldn't be on a daily basis, but I have no interest in discussing my infiltration techniques. We have a more pressing matter. See, old Enko don't care about much and even less about most people. My gaki, though, is a different matter. So, when I see a foreign kunoichi, one prepared to attack Konoha, I wonder why she's making time with my gaki. Could it be genuine? Maybe? Did she know who he really was and wanted to claim the Yondaime's son either as a kill or to seduce and compromise him? Those thoughts, I shouldn't have to tell you, filled me with the most sincere desire to commit acts of grievous bodily harm. I have to say, I'm hard-pressed to think of a reason not to disappear you just to be safe. Temari put together who this woman's gaki was and kicked herself for not realizing Naruto would of course have murderous psychos dedicated to his protection. Konoha was lousy with them. She needed to say something to placate her. Always quick-witted, Temari went for the first idea she had. If you kill me, Konoha and Suna will be at war. I thought about that and war is bad, blah blah blah. But I'm inclined to think my gaki is worth it. What else you got, Cookie? We're just friends. Temari spat. What else was there to say if this woman didn't give a damn about sparking a war? And is that all you want? To be his pal? Temari paused and broke eye contact, a mistake by the feel of the kunai breaking her skin. It was a familiar and unwelcomed sting. I don't know, she said. How are we going to have a fruitful relationship if you're lying to me, Cookie? I'm asking you, what do you want from Uzumaki Naruto? I like him, okay? He's sweet, nice, and attentive. Temari blurted out. I think that's about as good as we're going to get, Anko-chan, a new voice said. A voice attached to a person Temari had no idea was also in her room. Ah, Naishan, that doesn't really say what we should do with her. I vote unmarked grave. You always vote unmarked grave. The Nai-chan, woman said. It's always the right answer, the psycho before her said with a pout. How do you feel about shallow graves, Cookie? I'd rather not end up in one, Temari responded. It made the two women cackle. Well, no one who wound up in a shallow grave wanted to be there. You should try to be more helpful in the future, you know, assuming you have one. Now, Nai-chan, does that mean you're against my idea? Yes, I am. It's 1-1. Enko pointed out. We need a tiebreaker. What do you think, Tsunade-sama? Temari paled and became as white as a sheet. She may not have known these other women, but she knew of the Sannin, the queen of potions and elixirs and the strongest kunoichi in existence. She was possessed by a fear greater than any she'd ever felt. Not even Gaara at his most psychotic scared her like Tsunade did. I say we take a wait-and-see approach. But if she ever causes harm to my student, I'll hit her so hard every internal organ inside of her will liquefy. Now, that sounds like something I'd want to see. Well, it looks like you get a pass for now, Cookie. You sleep well, okay? Enko said. The three left soundlessly, though Temari was too in her head about what just transpired. So many questions, but the most vexing was, why was she slightly turned on? Naruto, drunkenly, made his way to his last destination of the night. He rather liked his dad's guards. They were jovial, which was nice to be around, and Genma was really good with Saban, much better than the Uzumaki, which explained his state. Every time he lost at Saban darts, Naruto had to drink a special concoction inspired by his mother's heightened tolerance. No one but the barkeep knew what was in the habanero death shot, but it was potent enough to get a Jinchuuriki drunk. At some point, Enko-chan arrived with Tsunade and Yuhi-sensei. The two younger kunoichi congratulated him on his promotion. Yuhi-sensei even gave him a kiss on the cheek. He looked forward to taking her from Asuma-san. The night was quite enjoyable, and even Hataki-sensei seemed to enjoy himself, but Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that something had been missing. Not just tonight, but for a while. He stepped out of the bar to get some air, but soon found himself a place he'd been often. I want to see Hinata-chan, Dadabeo! He exclaimed with an unusual amount of vigor. The guard snickered, but he didn't care. One entered the clan compound, but upon his return he saw someone who decided wasn't Hinata. For the second time today he felt the need to hurt someone. He started to roll up his sleeves, but Hyuga Hayashi-san's grip on his shoulders stopped him. That won't be necessary, Uzumaki-san, Hinata's dad assured him. The Uzumaki wasn't so sure, but relented anyway. It is quite late. What is so important that you call upon my daughter at this hour? I want to see her, Dadabeo, he said with a tinge of confusion. Hadn't he been clear with why he's here? I understand, the larger man said with a laugh. I'm asking why you want to see her. Naruto looked at the man that refused to talk sense. Because I do. He wondered if his consumption of alcohol made everyone else a little less intelligent. He heard Hyuga Hayashi-san sigh. Uzumaki-san, can I request a favor from you as Hinata's father? Naruto nodded once. I would like you to forego seeing my daughter until after the Chunin exam finals. She's made great strides over the years due to her efforts and the support she's received from you, but I don't want you to be a crutch or for her to doubt she couldn't succeed without you. I'm asking you to endure this separation so I'll know my daughter is ready to become a Chunin. Naruto nodded again. The man was finally making sense, at least a little. He should just agree, but for some inexplicable reason he didn't want to. Not seeing his best friend for 2 more weeks didn't strike him as tolerable, which confused him. But she often did. I'll do it, but I don't want to, Tabeo, he finally answered. Good man, Hayashi said as he patted the newly minted Chunin on the shoulders. I guess that's our cue to be off, Naruto-kun? Hataki-sensei said from behind him. He didn't know how everyone else was so confident about this, but he followed his sensei anyway, but vowed to make sure his best friend was never beyond his reach again. Chapter 24. The anticipation was palpable as the stadium filled, ninja and non-ninja alike eager to see the day's event. As the people trickled in, finding their seats, not all were there to simply enjoy an exhibition of the village's youngest generation. Raza, the Yondaime Kazekage, would be such an individual. His month had been, frankly, shit. The panic note from Baki informing him their plans had been uncovered, and a genin, Raza often had to take a breath when he recalled that a genin in the exams managed to capture Orochimaru, a man the Kage didn't think he could best in a solo fight. His children were hostages, each broken by the same boy. Uzumaki Naruto, son of the Yondaime Hokage. Apparently an undercover prodigy, as none of his intelligence agents had anything about the genin before I posted that joke of a bingo book entry. His best chance to salvage his village had been spoiled by a mere child. He considered scrambling his sand agents and launching a desperation hit on the boy. He figured they had a 3 in 10 chance of making it to the village. 2 in 10 chance of managing to kill the boy if they did. He also knew the monkey god would point his 2 students, Kakashi and every A-level killer that village of lunatics housed towards Suna, assuming Hiruzen didn't lead the march himself. It would be a siege, a drawn-out affair, and the winner determined by who wanted the other one dead the most. But that wasn't what stopped Raza. Because he'd probably survive such an engagement, but his children would not. And reputation aside, he didn't have to be overly imaginative to think none of his children would go fast nor easy. It was a coin flip between who would get it the worst, Temari or Gaara, but Kankuro would be thoroughly tortured for the secrets of their puppetry. He was a Kage first, that was his responsibility, but there were limits. He'd face the entirety of Konoha by himself before he allowed his children to die for his mistake, and if they were to die, he'd go first, doing all he could to free them. So, he obeyed Hiruzen's rules. He only brought the honored siblings with him. Tsunade, Jiraiya, and a squad of ANBU greeted them at the border. No hard words were exchanged and all behaved professionally, but the two Sannin being there was the loudest, clearest death threat Raza had ever received. The travel was uneventful, but upon arrival he hadn't been allowed to see his children nor speak to Baki. He wouldn't know how well they were until their fights potentially rigged to kill them in front of him. The cushioned seat he occupied, one situated beside where he Hokage would soon be, was uncomfortable. He felt like a caged animal with the addition of a month of frayed nerves. His discipline was slipping, and where it ended, instinct picked up. Right now, his was not of a leader nor a shinobi, but a father. A father that wanted nothing more than to get his children to safety, no matter what it had cost him in the end. In a secured location within the stadium, Hiruzen awaited the final security checks by his ANBU. The Hokage decided to only have 2 ANBU guards. If Raza had something planned, he wanted Tsunade and Jiraiya free to move about the village. Danzo was with him. The man appeared to have something to say. "You know you can't kill him, right?" Hiruzen briefly wondered when he became surrounded by nannies and ninjas instead of the ninja he commanded. He knew what Danzo meant. It would be inopportune to kill Raza. The long and short plays said to keep the man alive. He understood that, but a point of fact was he literally could kill Raza, the honorable siblings, and anyone else he damned please in his village, because it was his village, and outside his 2 students not a damn person could challenge him. Guy could give it a go, but he'd waste that poor boy before he ever got to the required gates to be a threat. So yes, he could kill Raza. "You're being petulant, Hiruzen." "I haven't said anything," the August Hokage responded. "You were thinking very loudly. However, if it'll make you feel better, yes, you're perfectly capable of killing Raza. I'd look cool doing it too," Hiruzen added. Danzo's shoulders slumping was the sweetest of victories. "You're my penance," Danzo said. Hiruzen scoffed. "If I give you even half the headaches in our golden years that you gave me in our prime, you should consider yourself lucky. If I weren't too tired to hate, I'd hate you with the entirety of my being," his former rival confessed. "Come watch the future protectors of our village, it'll be invigorating," Hiruzen responded. The crowds had drifted toward their seats, the excitement of seeing the future of the village creating a palpable tension. The Hokage had spoken, an implicit opening of the ceremonies as the final contestants had been paraded about. All that was left were the fights. He wasn't the best at ceremony, too excitable, too earnest. He had no talent in ninjutsu or genjutsu, but Rock Lee could fight. Standing across from his opponent, he could see no trace of tension in her body as she adopted a loose stance, and he hopped on his toes before settling in. The sickly proctor called a start, and Lee, leg weights not worn at the behest of his sensei, blitzed the Hyuga heiress. His sweep was evaded, and he briefly felt her body on his as she rolled off his back. His body moved before conscious thought could dictate, saving the energetic boy from a swift kick aimed at his head. The dodge provided enough time for him to properly defend against her barrage of attacks. Confident he'd seen enough of the gentle fist from Niji, Lee began exchanging blows. He hadn't expected an oblique kick hard enough to nearly buckle his knee. The stunning blow opened his stance, and Lee was punished with 3 quick palm thrusts that knocked him back a good 20 feet. He rolled a little further away to give him more space. Those blows hurt. She didn't fight like Niji. His speed wasn't overwhelming her like he thought it would, and he clearly had more to worry about than her grappling skills. Abandoning his initial thoughts on Hinata's skill set, Lee was hastily forming a new plan. Hayashi watched on as his eldest did battle with the Might Guy clone. His nephew may have hated him to his core, but he still kept tabs on him and his team, so he knew Rock Lee was formidable for a genin. As such, that Hinata was getting the better of their exchanges impressed him all the more. He'd give credit where it was due. Her opponent was deftly avoiding going to the ground with her, utilizing some clever escapes and his superior strength. However, even as he managed to avoid them, he'd be punished with various pokes and palm thrusts as he broke free, and it was starting to take their toll. The crowd thundered in appreciation of the taijutsu match, and the proud father in him wanted to preen as they were cheering for his little girl. She deserved it. When she first told him she wouldn't follow the traditional ways of the clan, he accepted it. Not because he believed in her, to his everlasting shame. But as she developed her own style and became more confident, he knew her problem hadn't been a lack of talent. Roses don't grow in frozen wastelands, fish can't climb trees. It was his teachings that failed her, not the other way around. Now, he looked on in pride he wasn't entitled to, as she had her competitor beaten and breathing. Would this be enough for her to earn a promotion? Possibly. The decision was as rooted in the candidate's abilities as it was the village's needs. Maybe in this time of peace where she'd still be with her Jounin sensei, Hinata was ready. He wouldn't begrudge her extra year or so at Genin if she wasn't. Ugh! A feminine voice exclaimed, instantly putting an end to Hayashi's internal deliberations. His eyes, activated from the beginning, telling him all he needed. Guy's student went for a sweep, and as Hinata jumped over the boy, opened the first gate. She couldn't respond to the sudden burst of speed nor the kick that followed. One powerful enough to crack 3 of her ribs. She tried to defend, but he was able to land 2 swift body blows, and Hayashi could see the pain in her. No longer concerned about her victory, he just wanted his little girl to be okay. Niji didn't outwardly respond to his cousin's show of discomfort. It would be unbecoming of a Hyuga, and with Tenten next to him, somehow having become friends with the pampered princess, he'd only stoke her ire. That didn't mean he couldn't enjoy it silently. It was divine punishment. Both of these inferiors going further into the tournament than him made the bile arise in him, the acidic taste lingering on his tongue. He didn't care who won, either of the fighters were worthy of being tuned in nor of the praise and attention of the onlookers. Do you think she can still fight? Tenten asked him. He could. He had the will, determination, and all-out genius to power through such injury, assuming he'd be so sloppy as to receive it, that was. I doubt it, was Niji's reply. He really didn't see how she could fend off Lee with her core imperiled, and yet she adopted the most basic of gentle fist stances. It was weak and full of holes, a clear sign she had nothing left. Niji concluded Lee must have agreed as he once again rushed her. Niji assumed it would be Lee attacking relentlessly and Hinata evading or deflecting in a desperate attempt to drag this farce on. He was wrong. And beyond being wrong, he saw something new. It was like an incomplete Kaiten, but not. No, focused, generated by one hand, and she moved Lee off his centerline, unbalancing his body. He couldn't avoid the upward palm thrust to his chin that landed square. Lee flung a front kick, to cause damage or generate space Niji couldn't tell. With practiced ease, Hinata transferred his momentum upward. Lee was off his feet and being flipped. He rotated a full 360 degrees, clearly not in control. Once he'd come back around, upright but still in the air, Hinata stopped his momentum by grabbing his face and slamming him in the opposite direction of his spin. Lee hit the ground with a thud. The protector was on the combats before Hinata could attack again. It wasn't necessary, Lee was unconscious. Hinata had won. Naruto Clan? Hinata questioned when she arrived at the medical bay. The surprise momentarily numbed the shooting pain of her injured ribs, a pain that came right back and forced a groan from her. One of the medical ninja had her on an exam table an instant later, but it seemed she was going to be tended to by her Naruto Clan. Hi, Hinata-chan. Take this, he instructed her. The Hyuga heiress wanted to smile at his professionalism. She took the pills and the flimsy cup, downing one and then the other. The cream-colored drink tasted of vanilla. She soon felt a soothing wave of healing chakra enter her body. The next fight could be seen on the monitors, but she was more focused on the Uzumaki she hadn't seen in weeks, silently blaming Kakashi for most of it. And her father for his harebrained scheme. What did I take, Naruto-kun? Pain pills and a high concentration of calcium. More than you normally want in your body, but it being there aids in mending your ribs. So, will I be able to fight again? The more time I have, the better I can repair the damage, but you could be medically cleared. You'd have a greater risk of brain injury. The news wasn't ideal, but she wouldn't complain. Silently, she let Naruto focus, and she watched the Suna Kunoichi versus the Kumo ninja. The ninja couldn't close the distance between him and the Kunoichi, and she soon made him forfeit. It was an unfortunate clash of styles for him. Next would be Sasuke versus the Suna ninja. Or it should have been. His face buried in an orange book, the Sunanin forfeited from the stands, which meant her next match was up. Am I cleared? She asked. Naruto nodded. Just barely, he responded. It wasn't ideal, but she wasn't sure she'd done enough to earn promotion with her first match, so to decline this next round might sink her candidacy. Decision made, she had one thing to do before she returned to the arena floor. Sliding off the table, she hugged her dear friend. I miss you, she whispered. There was so much she wanted to say, nothing of grand importance, she just wanted to talk to her friend like she used to. We saw each other yesterday, Naruto said while returning the hug. She giggled. It was technically true, they had seen each other, but they'd also been in separate locations entirely. It was not the same. Let's meet up later, okay? Okay, he affirmed. She hurried back, not wanting to be disqualified. Temari stood alone, surrounded by people she was once meant to attack, taking stock of her current predicament. She was assured a promotion. The only reason she wasn't a Chunin now was for the sake of the invasion. If her entree into a superior rank wasn't an issue, then why fight again? Well, with Gaara having lost his mind and Kankuro eliminated, it fell to her to make a good showing for her village. It was a reason so good she was almost sure it wasn't a justification for her real motive. Slapping down, and not a chan, would just be an added bonus. She was, apparently, the linchpin. Naruto was quite open about his best friend, though he never shared any information that would put her at risk. Temari couldn't tell if that was intentional or not, but it was vexing as all get out. No, she wouldn't do this just to shame the Hyuga or to prove decisively she was the superior choice. It just so happens she can be of great use to her village and shame the younger girl, who, giving her choice of attire, black, short sleeve, top with Kusari Gasoku underneath, was better developed than Temari. This village was really easy to hate. Ample resources, comfortable climate, great economy, and droves of perfect, angelic pretty bitches with no will and no sense. Not that some boy was her goal. She was a loyal Suna Kunoichi. As proud as she was strong. But given her father's poor decisions, it is very likely Konoha would demand recompense. A boon, possibly several, and assurances Suna wouldn't betray them again. A political marriage between the son of the 4th Hokage and the daughter of the 4th Kazekage might do the trick. She wouldn't like it. But she'd fulfill her duty. And remove all those friends from his life with her innate feminine splendor. Schooling her features at the audience cheering the return of the Hyuga princess, Temari evened out her breath and relaxed her muscles. The game plan was simple: keep her at a distance and overwhelm with wind jutsu, and don't let up until the match is called. Hajime, the frail man called. Temari kicked off the ground, creating distance between the taijutsu specialist and her. Once confident she had the desired distance, Temari swung open her fan and instantly felt one of her shoulders go numb with pain radiating outward. Blood was starting to show on her jacket, but she didn't understand what happened. Looking back toward the Hyuga, she swiftly ducked as 2 projectiles were aimed at her head. Senban, she wondered, but didn't hear the telltale sign of metal hitting the ground. Grunting, she slapped her shoulder to get some feeling back. One-handed swings were slower and less powerful. She couldn't afford either. Get distance on a Hyuga, how original, she heard the girl say with a thick layer of condescension in her voice. Having regained some feeling, Temari went to swing her fan but found herself pierced again, this time in the thigh. She dropped her fan and used it as cover once more. This situation wasn't ideal, but before she was hit, Temari saw it. Drops of water beneath the Hyuga. Somehow she was molding water as projectiles. Thin, fast, and precise. Temari, however, was guessing they were also frail. Plan in mind, she emerged from behind her fan, hand seals in motion, while the Hyuga was gaining on her. Temari inhaled and performed the great breakthrough as she had 100 times before. The Suna Kunoichi thought herself prepared for anything as she began her return to her fan. She had not expected the Hyuga to respond with a fireball, one powerful enough to overwhelm her wind jutsu. Seeing the upcoming blaze, Temari unleashed an even more powerful gust of wind that extinguished the flames. She was given no time to savor her minor victory, as she felt several finger pokes to her back. Her body reacting without her permission, Temari felt a forearm pressed against her throat, a vice-like squeeze following it as she pulled to the ground. "This is for Tenten," were the last words she heard before she blacked out. As the fight ended, Kakashi was gripped by a sense of trepidation. He didn't know why. He couldn't point to a single shred of proof, but he just knew his most emotional student was about to do something foolish. It would likely surprise people that he thought Sasuke was the more emotional of his charges, but it would only show they didn't know his students. The first domino fell when Hinata declined the last fight. It made sense. Whatever injury she suffered against Lee likely hadn't healed completely, and while she gambled against a long-range fighter, her not risking it against Sasuke was wise. That decision alone likely cemented her promotion, along with whatever techniques she pulled off against Lee that had Guy in a state of shock. There was more there to investigate, but the honey badger was getting dangerous. Hinata pulling out should have been the end of it. Sasuke would be disappointed, but with his performance in the other two exams and the prelims, his promotion wasn't completely sunk. So why was Sasuke still speaking with Hate? Why did Hate send a message to the Hokage? Why did the Hokage nod? And why did Hate just leave? Damn it, Sasuke! Kakashi groaned, the other Jounin-sensei and Anko all looking at him. What do you think he's done, Kakashi? Guy asked. Just wait, Kakashi warned. Back in the medical bay, Naruto was keeping Lee company, the older boy having finished the concussion protocols. Naruto wondered if Lee was what people meant when they said someone was good-natured, as while he lost to Hinata he still cheered her against Temari. He rather liked Lee before, but that rose the boy in his estimation. Lee, are we friends? If we aren't, I'd certainly like to be, Lee answered without hesitation. I'd like that too. Yosh! If I didn't have one, you'd make a most excellent rival, Naruto-kun. Thank you, Lee. Lee's blinding smile almost distracted Naruto from the new arrival, though his cough gave him away. The Uzumaki hadn't gotten to spend a lot of time with Gecko-san, a few dinners with him and Yugane and a few Fuinjutsu lessons, but he thought the man was affable. Hey Naruto, you up for a match? Naruto looked at him confused for a moment before the fullness of the request dawned on him. Against Sasuke-san? Yes. Hokage-sama approved but said it's entirely up to you, though there was an additional caveat from Sasuke should you agree. What's that? He said he wants the Uzumaki Naruto that faced Orochimaru. The crowd had quieted down, not even Kakashi had explained what he meant. He palmed his face when he saw Hyde's companion. He was right. Dressed in a black flak vest, instead of his Chunin green one, sticks, tanto and chained weapons strapped to his back and the fingerless gloves Kakashi gifted him for his promotion. Sasuke submitted the challenge and Naruto accepted. The stadium was going crazy. The last, Konoha, Uchiha versus the son of the Yondaime, the boy that stalemated a Sannin? He could feel the spectators thirsting for an epic match. Kakashi found no joy in it. As much as he missed Naruto when he was assigned to Jiraiya, it had the positive benefit of cooling Sasuke's competitive streak and denied him easy access to an Itachi stand-in. He thought the boy had finally reached a place where Sasuke could see Naruto and truly become teammates. Instead, he saw someone his age approximating his life's goal, and so he had to know how he measured up. Maybe Sasuke didn't see Itachi anymore when he looked at Naruto. A worse option could have been selected. Sasuke might see himself. A better version just out of reach. This was what he feared, and he hoped the fight wouldn't undo weeks of progress. Sometimes being a genius just sucked. With no way of stopping it, Kakashi simply had to watch his two students duel. Sasuke awoke with a gasp. The sudden exhalation caused him to cough, the unwelcome movements calling attention to his beaten and battered body. His head hurt, his eyes hurt, and he wasn't sure where he was or how he'd gotten there. Laying down his most recent memory returned. Blue eyes that were not alive with combat or emotion simply looked ahead at the task at hand. A left cross and right hook to the chin caused his vision to swim. A series of rapid punches, felt but not seen, followed thereafter. Fast and strong. Sasuke didn't know which strike knocked him out, but he knew several of them could have. I hope you're pleased with yourself, a familiar voice asked. I'd be more pleased if I wasn't the one knocked out and in, I assume, a hospital bed, Sasuke answered. He hoped Kakashi would avoid the lecture or, at the very least, postpone its execution until he felt more himself and less a training dummy. Tell me, Sasuke, what was achieved with this little stunt? I needed to know. Know what? What he had and I lacked. Why he could face a Sannin with zero hesitation and survive when I doubt I could do the same. I needed to see how someone my age had eclipsed me entirely, and if I could follow that path. And what did you learn? He's stronger than he looks. The Uchiha responded, and while it sounded like a quip, Sasuke was being sincere. And? Kakashi asked, sounding more annoyed than Sasuke had ever heard him. Walk me through your strategy. When did you sense it wasn't working and how did you adjust? I didn't have one. Winning wasn't the point. Oh? Kakashi asked in mock surprise. You look to be trying your hardest to do that. It wasn't the only point. Sasuke amended in annoyance. I really thought the wire trap would work though, he added. When he had the Uzumaki trapped in the wires, courtesy of them being attached to shuriken, he was confident a lightning jutsu would end things. Didn't expect him to cut through the ninja wire with ease. Wind users are annoying like that, Kakashi rejoined. His tone suggested there was a story behind the statement, a specific memory being accessed. Good to know. And with wind being his affinity, I assumed my ninjutsu would give me the advantage. Even when Naruto created the earth wall to intercept his grand fireball, it blowing up into dust left him confident he still had the edge in ninjutsu. When an off-target shuriken came sailing by, he ignored it and was unprepared for it to revert to a clone of Naruto. The leaping roundhouse he absorbed was the beginning of the end. Beset by clones from every direction, he was picked apart until the original decided to end things. I could be on his level if I were challenged the same as he, Sasuke concluded. Or you'd be dead. Naruto would be if that was Orochimaru's goal. That didn't stop him. I saw it with my own eyes, he didn't expect to survive. And what a loss that would have been. In Konoha, we protect the future so they in exchange can protect the future still. I guarantee if it were a choice between the Anko, the Kunoichi he saved, and Naruto, she would have sacrificed herself. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone, your growth is yours and not dependent on anyone else. I have a monster to slay, Kakashi. The sooner the better, and I'm nowhere close. He wasn't going all out, I could tell. Sasuke grunted when something landed on him. He opened his eyes to see a Chunin vest. Hokage-sama believes you're ready to wear that and bear all that comes with it. After today, I'm decidedly unsure. We've all got monsters to slay, Sasuke. The trick is remaining human while doing so. Man, Hinata really kicked ass. Though nothing gave me more pleasure than seeing Sasuke pounded on, Kiba exclaimed to the group. Shino and he were joined with Team Guy and Ten being escorted by Haku to Naruto's apartment. The Inuzuka wanted to celebrate and Naruto had access to a courtyard, no parental supervision, and Hinata was likely already there. Win. Indubitably. Shino started. Hinata's performance justified the multiple times she defeated you while training. You didn't have to say all that, Shino, Kiba said as his posture drooped and shoulders hung. Relax, dog boy, we all know Hinata beats you down. It isn't some big secret. Ino teased. Hey! He exclaimed. Maybe she does, no shame in that. And Shino can tease because we're teammates, and that makes them pack, but I won't be roasted by a recovering fangirl. Oh, and what are you gonna do about it? You couldn't even beat Sakura, because she had those fancy shuriken I'd never seen before and they weren't even hers, so really, I stalemated with Naruto, something Sasuke couldn't manage to do. He reasoned and earned a giggle from the older girl in front. That is some creative argumentation, Kiba-san, Haka said. Thanks. He gently slowed down and gave Ino a signal to do the same. Hey, he whispered. What's her situation? He asked the Yamanaka. Her situation? She repeated in confusion. Yes, her situation. He emphasized. Oh, don't even bother. She's out of your league. Dogs gotta hunt, Ino. Then you're barking up the wrong tree. Oh, does she prefer the company of ladies to gentlemen? Ino laughed. Not to my knowledge, but you're either mutt. Look, I'm certain she's into someone else, so spare yourself some pain. Kiba readjusted the paper bag in his hands as he said, Well, what does this person have that I don't? Independent wealth, brilliance, taste and style, strength, and an impeccable pedigree. Each word felt like a sledgehammer using his skull for an anvil. My mom is the leader of one of Konoha's premier clans. That's not nothing. True, and we're essentially of equal stature as that goes, so that should tell you something. Is it Sasuke? Kiba asked. Why would you think that? Ino asked in genuine surprise. Given everything you said, I mean, who else could it be? Naruto, you knob. You know, son of the fourth Hokage. But he has the personality of a brick, Kiba said and was promptly rounded on. Because this is me, you said that too, and not Hinata, you'll only get a warning and not a fist to the nose. Naruto has a personality, and it is perfectly wonderful. He is kind and open and supportive. He can even be funny in the right context. Don't ever say that about him again or I'll deck you, got it? Sure. Geez, you like him now too? No, Sasuke is still the boy for me, but Naruto is a really good friend. Now let's catch up. The dog Nin user modded, Akamaru barking in agreement, and the two sped up with the gang. Haku led them up the stairs, unlocking the door to Naruto's apartment, unknowingly providing an audience for Hinata's and his first kiss.